Hi, everyone, and welcome to Being an Empowered Woman workshop today. I'm so excited that you all decided to join us today for this event. Thank you so much. I know there's a lot going on right now and a lot of possibilities out there on the web right now. So thank you for spending your time with us. I really appreciate it. Awesome. Some housekeeping. So please stay mute while we're on the webinar. The chat is available, so go ahead and chat if you would like and communicate with our panelists. And also Q&A is available. Each one of our panelists will be taking a turn giving a talk, and then at the end of their talk, they'll be taking questions, so I can help you with those questions. So thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. This is very near and dear to my heart, this topic. And it's been a life's journey for me, especially recently, learning how to step into my voice, become clear with my boundaries, and stand up for myself. I was looking on the web and I found this list of 9 things that women could not do when I was born. So in 1969, a woman could not have a credit card in her own name. It wasn't until 1974 that credit card companies began to issue. And even then, they asked a barrage of questions. They couldn't be guaranteed that they wouldn't be fired if they got pregnant at work. And it wasn't until it was changed with the Discrimination Act of 1978 that her employment wouldn't be threatened if she got pregnant. Serve on a jury. And this was state by state. But a lot of them, not until 1961, the Supreme Court upheld a Florida law that exempted women from serving on juries. And it wasn't until 1973 that women can serve on juries in all 50 states. They couldn't fight on the front lines, not admitted into military academies till 1976, get an Ivy League education. Yale and Princeton didn't accept female students till 1969. Harvard didn't admit women till 1977. And then 1971, 72, and 81 for Dartmouth, Columbia, and Brown. They couldn't take legal action against the workplace harassment, sexual harassment, until much later, 1977. They couldn't decide to not have sex with their husband. Spousal rape wasn't criminalized in all 50 states until 1993. We couldn't obtain health insurance at the same monetary rate as men. Sex discrimination wasn't outlawed in health insurance until 2010. And today, many, including sitting elected officials at the federal level, feel women don't mind paying a little more. Again, that date was 2010. That was 10 years ago. So we've broken a lot of glass ceilings, especially recently, but I think we still have a long way to go. And that starts within us. So doing the healing work inside of ourselves affects the collective. Learning how to move past those old paradigms from childhood and the past, to move past our belief systems that we've gained from the women in our lives, our families, our culture, our school systems, our government, all of those belief systems that we pick up, that we're not good enough, that we're not worthy, that we should be seen and not heard. And there's many more, So it's time to release those limiting beliefs from our past, from our collective past. To join our ancestors in lifting up our voices and fighting for our rights, like we've been doing so well these days, especially with the divine feminine coming online. It's really important now more than ever to step forward and have a voice and stop playing small. And let's stop for a second and think about our ancestors and everything that they did for us to get us where we are today and how strong they were. It's because of them that we're here, not only physically, but with everything that we're able to do now in 2020. So thank you to our ancestors. there's still a lot of work to do. So this is why I wanted to host this workshop, you know, to get in touch with who we are as individuals, step into our autonomy, step into our voices, and be heard. No more playing small, stepping into our divine feminine, not swinging the pendulum one way to be very meek or the other way to be strong, so strong that we're doing, and feeling like we can't have everything that we want, that career, that family, you know, but coming into balance, into neutral, that we can do all of these things. We can work and have a family. We can have spirituality and an income and many other things that we're able to step into today, and hopefully more in the future. So thank you for joining me today. I want to invite our panelists that have joined me today for everyone. So today we have, find my notes here. Bear with me a second. Seer and scientist Elizabeth Wood is joining us today. Quantum multi-dimensional healer and intuitive guide, Jenny Schiltz. Hi, Jenny. Author Amy Cartier, and owner of Intuitive University and Empath Intuition University. Consultant, educator, psychotherapist, and founder of the School of De Nova, Eva Papp. And master energy coach and transformational powerhouse, and owner of the Shakti Bomb Method, Katie Kozlowski. Ladies, thank you for joining me today. So we have a few more minutes before Elizabeth speaks. So let's take a moment, and I want to go through a meditation with everyone. So let's get grounded in our seats, our feet on the floor, and take a deep breath. And let's come into our bodies and come into this space. There's been a lot going on, a lot of distraction, a lot of powerful things in our outer world. So let's come to this moment and be here right now, bringing our soul into our bodies and into your heart. Then bring your attention to your heart and allow light to come in from beneath your feet and above your head, into your body, into your heart. Take a deep breath and just inhale that in. Inhale it into your heart and your body. Now allow that to expand. It's expanding in your heart, feeling your torso, running down your arms and your legs, neck, shoulders, head. You're connecting down into the earth now and connecting up into the heavens. And let that energy expand and fill your space. Breathing deep, inhaling that energy and allowing it to expand around your body, filling your space, filling your room, filling your home, your place of work, wherever you may be today. And allow it to reach beyond, filling your community, your state, your country, and expanding out to the world. And let's take a deep breath and claim ourselves. I claim my sovereignty. I claim my personal power. I claim my liberation, my mind, my body, my emotional state, and my physical state. I align with the highest version of myself in the highest, most benevolent way possible. Better things come to me. I accept my life's abundance. Every experience is the next best thing for me. I am strong. I am free. I am worthy. I am enough. I am enough. I thrive. Just feel that and let it expand in your body. Taking a deep breath. Bringing your awareness back to your energy that's all around the planet. Bring it down to your country, down to your state, down to your town, your home, around your body. Take another deep breath. And now blinking your eyes and moving a little, coming back into the room. Thank you. Wonderful. I can feel everybody here. Awesome and present. So Elizabeth, we're going to start with you, and then we'll go to Jenny Schiltz after that, Aimee Cartier, 30 minutes after that, Katie Kozlowski, and Eva Papp. Eva Papp and then Katie. My apologies. Okay, so I'm going to unpin everybody. So Elizabeth, you'll have the floor. Wonderful. Okay, Elizabeth, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. It was a beautiful meditation. It's always hard to go right after the meditation. So good. I'm really excited to talk a little bit with everyone about radiance and being able to work with that core light essence. How to really get to that place right now, the opportunity we have in this gateway and the others that are coming, especially solstice coming up. And so I really thank you, Liz, for this beautiful time together, especially with the divine feminine, as we're all activating and coming into one mind at this time. There's this massive flash of energy that is being perceived coming up. And it always seems like it's coming from the outside, but it's not. It's really actually coming from divine feminine consciousness merging. So it's coming from the inside of humanity. And that's the chance we have, I think, to work with duality. And so you so beautifully pointed out how this duality through time has been really starting to come clear. The pendulums and their edges are very obvious now. And I love 1111 because it's the real opening of these two waves of consciousness and this path that opens up in the center of it. It happens with every layer of our reality. It's happening in every part of our 3D structures. It's happening inside of each of us. So these big polarities within us are opening, and the heart of reality is showing itself, especially through the feminine right now. So the heart of reality is the essence of you. You are a facet of the divine feminine light, sort of like trillions of different wavelengths of light that expresses the whole of it. We have this chance to merge and become one. And recently I saw this very clearly. I'd always heard about the ancient legends of the rainbow people, right? The rainbow people. And the native people, the indigenous people always said, the rainbow people are coming. Well, the rainbow people is the divine feminine stepping into this portal of light merging with it entirely, and then opening up one mind for humanity to become Homo luminous, something entirely new, a new species, a new type of human. We do it each time there's a big, massive shift in consciousness. And this experiment in consciousness now is at its end. And we have proven the hypothesis that we came to originally, which is, can love triumph? Can love triumph over subjugation, over second-class citizenship, over rape, over genocide? Can love triumph over politics? Can it triumph over financial systems? It's finished. We get to open up into a new era. This is where the radiance of our essence comes in. So what do you love? What do you love most in the entire universe? What drives you? What drives you? And what do you fear? What do you fear the most? What makes you hold it separate? Because it's something you don't want to become. So for me, my essence is wonder. And wonder is afraid to not be the right person to give the answers to everybody when someone comes and needs help. And wonder's in desire to know all that can be known, to see all that can be seen. And so bringing ourselves into that truth, what do I desire most? What do I fear most? Allowing that to show you why you came here in this moment. What is it, the frequency of you, to stand with the rest of the rainbow of the divine feminine light that's online right now. And that radiance, it moves through your body. The feminine body is more formless. It can allow more light to move through it. It's supposed to. It's supposed to. It's full of information. If we actually love ourselves, it's not selfless service anymore. We're gonna be in sovereign service now. Sovereign service, to love the thing that you love the most, to be in the frequency of that and love you, and you include yourself in this. And when you love that radiance, then it opens up and it connects to all the other radiance that's available. Other women to do it too. It's amazing. It's like all at once. In the past year, all the women have come together and they're all merging and meeting and co-creating, and there's no more competition. It's all the merger of the divine feminine stepping into power with our boss, Gaia, who brought us here, brought us this far. And she is entering into a perfect alignment that's opening up all the portals on the earth. But we don't need to go into the earth physically to get there, into that radiance that the earth is opening up in us. We can do it with our whole bodies as women, as formless beings of light, to be empowered and step into that alignment with Gaia. And that's what the flash is. That's what that big burst of light is. And it changes DNA. And it will change ours if we are willing to go through what that's going to take. And I love that you brought up the ancestors, Liz, because they're all waiting with us, millions and millions of them, saying, we want to go too. We want to go through the portal too. Some of them want to go home to source forever and end the wheel of incarnation for themselves. And some of them want to incarnate in these new wonderful bodies, these full spectrum DNA with all the access that we all wanted so much for all these eons. And all the women who've carved the way to get there. They are here too, standing on this edge of consciousness, on the cutting edge of consciousness. All of us are in equanimity. And then we get to come into this alignment and say, where are we? We're all like a compass. Divine feminine is a nice, wonderful compass, and it finds the alignments and it can feel them and embody them. the alignments of all the opening of dimensions, the alignments of the planets, the alignments of different species and these alignments, when they open in us, then we get to discern. Because the sovereign, feminine queen of the heart, they discern. They can give true, fair judgment. That's why justice is a female. True, fair judgment is not run through the ego. It's run through the beautiful, purified embodiment who has done all this work on herself and perfectly aligned all the tragedies that have happened to us. And it's amazing we're all alive. But that work, it opens us up to the essence. It opens us up to that light that moves through the dimensions into this embodiment, that consciousness. So when we stand in that, then we get to use these bodies for their fullest potential, the temple of light, to be able to see without needing to understand, to be able to feel so fully without needing to control, to feel true deep without doubting ourselves. To use the three minds, the brain, the heart, and the gut, and their true capabilities with the purest essence of the soul being the one in charge, the divine will of divine feminine empowerment is the momentum that opens the doors to new earth. And this is where we're at. This is why we're together, because we get to hang out in each other's light and move forward into this moment together and ending all of the competition and the backstabbing and the self-hatred, the worthlessness, the arrogance, the power over dynamics, especially ending them within ourselves through forgiveness work, through emotional processing, through all that beautiful praying and meditation and chanting and utilization of all these different methods. Look at who showed up here today. All these women who've literally started schools. It's so amazing. And none of them are standing here saying that they're the ones with power over their students. Not at all. All of us are students too. That's what makes good teachers. But here we are in a moment where we come together and we all know we're called to it. So we show up. We touch each other's fields, we merge together easily, without any resistance. The feminine is the divine surrender of perfect unconditional love without conditions. It's immobile, contains all the frequencies. There is no opposite to love. Love is the whole of the library and the construct of it. And so we're all being held in that. But as we merge our fields, as we reached out in the town, in the household, then passed through the little states we're in, wherever we might be, the edges of the country, out to the globe, we were reaching out to each other. And women have been standing in circle for eons. I mean, pretty much through 500,000 years of subjugation. So here we are now. That's the end. The divine feminine has the reins of power now. And it's from the spiritual that all this change is being forced. And it's not finished, of course. It's got to percolate through all the dimensions. But the only thing we have to concern ourselves with is reaching out and being one. That's it. Unity consciousness. It's the unifying consciousness that elevates humanity to a galactic consciousness, where now it's not just the earth all alone dealing with its stuff. It's the whole of the galactic playing field, which the Earth is taking us into. And again, all you have to do is open up to that. What's my greatest fear? What's my greatest desire? What does it point to that I want the most? What makes me get off the ground when I've fallen? Why, Elizabeth? Why, after all you've been through, do you keep going? And I thought about it and I said, altruism. Who is the one that carries through altruism when change happens in culture? It's women. It's the women. When the fires were burning in Australia and the west of North America, it was women who were getting all those families some meals when their houses burned down. Who is it that carries our societies through when collapse happens? It's the women. Because we are the foundation on which the house of humanity is built. And we are formless now. There's no floor left. We're formless like our mother, our beautiful earth. And if we're really, really paying attention carefully, just to how it feels, noticing what you see, it's amazing what you're going to be seeing now, because all of that is coming through from the divine feminine. And your friends are going to be like, yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, I could feel it too. And that's why we're all getting together over and over. Every day, something new is showing up for divine feminine consciousness. It's the time for us to stand in that essence and allow it to burn away any of our judgment, attachments, resistance, any of our ego, any of our pain, all the trauma of our ancestors. We're giving birth to something entirely new. And this is a great, grand opportunity. That's why we're here. So thank you so much, Liz. I'm really blessed that we get together today and notice this. Notice it from a spiritual, scientific vantage point, if you like. Notice it from a mysticism vantage point or an empath's vantage point, whatever your essence is. Notice it from that position. Be proud, be excited in consciousness. Building of the temple, a brand new temple of light that is so formless and it only lives in that immobile love. It's the stillness of our one mind, divine feminine consciousness that's come online now. And that's what I wanted to share today. Thank you so much, Liz. I appreciate that. It's really beautiful to be together.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That was beautiful. We're running ahead of schedule, so if you would like to talk more, please do. And I would like to invite our participants to ask questions. So go down to the Q&A, everybody, and Elizabeth can answer your questions. If anybody has any. Elizabeth, do you have any tips and tools?
Yeah, I'll speak a little more. Yes, I wanted to give some tools real quick. Thank you. And so some tools around making sure that you're using this discernment concept in a practical way coming up for all of us. And some days it feels like you're just being bombarded entirely. How do you know what's your feelings? How do you know what's yours? Is one of the biggest questions I often hear, especially right now, because everyone's getting more sensitive. The earth is so formless now that it's sort of triggered all of these spiritual capabilities, and now everyone's seeing, hearing, feeling, knowing things they couldn't access before, even if they've been processing or not. So, how do I know that those thoughts are mine? How do I know what I'm feeling is mine or not? What is for me and what's not? If it's coming into your awareness field, then it needs either your permission to use your field to get somewhere, or it's there for you to address if there's anything that it's triggering in you. So let's say you wake up, and the other day my friend said, you know what? I felt like I felt like the whole day that I just wanted to die. And I thought, that's unusual for her. She's a really cheerful person. And she said, I couldn't tell. Like, was it me? What's wrong with me? Is often the question we ask. It's a very familiar question for women. What's wrong with you? So here we get this chance to determine what's yours. So the brain mind has got these programs that'll pick this stuff up and then question. That's where that self-doubt comes from. And the programs come from eons. They're ancient, some of them. And some of them we've inherited from our cultural structure, pointing out, Liz. And all of that has to go. All of it has to go. It has to be dissolved. But the best way to dissolve anything is to merge with it. You merge with it fully. You welcome it so fully. Then you see what it's really made of. It was always made of love all along. Then it opens up and it ends its power over you. So you got to feel it. You got to go into the heart. How does that feel, this energy of, I don't want to live today, or I don't feel good today, or I don't want to do anything today, it's useless? How does it really feel? When you find it, it's hitting something in you. It's hitting trauma. It's hitting ego structure. You want to find it in your body. The embodiment's going to guide you. She's the greatest guide of your life. And so you go into it and you find that structure and you notice it and allow it. Maybe you see it a little bit about it. Maybe it triggered an inner child part of you. Maybe it triggered a painful part of you all the time. So you're just going to notice it, and it doesn't feel good. Allow it. It can't hurt you. It's just tight frequency. It's just consciousness under pressure. So you notice it. Thank you. I allow you here. This feeling, this energy, this frequency, this book of information, that's how it feels to feel like you don't want to go on today. It's just information. Welcome it. And when you notice it and welcome it and breathe, it releases a layer after layer of dense, tight consciousness under pressure. And then you ask your heart, because your heart's super smart. She has neurons. She's extremely clever, and she remembers every little thing about you. Your brain doesn't, your heart does. So you say, hey, dear heart, is this okay? Can we move through? What do we actually want to stand in from here? I want death that I might have in my body. I want to welcome all the fear that I won't succeed or prosper today or get enough money to pay my bills. I want to welcome this so fully that it doesn't have power over me. And then the essence can come through. So we ask the heart, dear heart, please let anything that's not mine move on through. You're welcome to use my field to go up, down, or out. You can't stay. Go ahead and use the field. And then whatever's left for you to process, you keep welcoming it until it does. Dear gut, what's the next step? The gut is the bacteria of the body that is connected to the earth, the emissaries of the earth. And they just want to help you make sure that you can survive in harmony with Gaia. Not with crazy human cultural corrupted subjugation systems, but with the earth. So the gut's going to open up and let you know, hey, this is what the body and the spirit, what we want to show you. We want to show you what you know. What do you really know right now? Ah, yes, I know right now that everything's separating so that there can be a middle way, a way of neutral, pure, open, non-judgmental love. And then you let your essence guide you and you'll see. Then you come back up to the third eye. You get to see a visual, a vision, a hope. You get to feel it. Maybe it's not exactly a picture. Maybe it's a feeling. Maybe it's an audio. Maybe it gives you a little next step. And you keep doing that. See, feel, know, and surrender. Surrender to what your soul knows, trusting that, learning to trust it. So that's how we can use our discernment right now, especially now because the earth is helping us so much. We can trust those bodies of ours. They're perfectly made for this journey.
I love that, Elizabeth. I love it so much because we're filtering, integrating, and processing through it instead of just putting it on a shelf or going, oh no, that couldn't possibly be me. I'm going to sit this on the shelf and just put it outside of myself. So we end up putting all of those negative aspects of ourselves out instead of working through it, like you were saying, bring it in and sitting with it, you know, and allowing it to move through the body.
Yeah.
Right.
These bodies are universes, my friends. You can trust them.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Is there a process of knowing
Don't
what,
see any questions.
you know, and what isn't? So is there a process of knowing what is out and what isn't through doing that integration?
Yeah. The constant that you should always trust is that there is nothing separate. So if there is a feeling of separation, if it seems separate, if it's so painful that you want to be separate from it, then go. People ask me, well, how do I know what to look at? How do I know which thing to feel? Go into the thing that you want to stay separate from. Follow the path whose sign says greatest fear right now. Follow that. Find it in your body. And you'll always get higher faster. You'll always open up to more dimensions of consciousness faster. That's all there is to it. Whatever's uncomfortable, whatever is separate from you, whatever triggers you, is the exact treasure that you want to go into, because that's the next thing inside of you that's ready to be opened up. The next consciousness under pressure that wants to be revealed in its light. And then you feel lighter and lighter and lighter. And this is a measurable process of welcoming. It's really that simple to find it in the body and to welcome it and allow it and get to know it. And then as you do, it doesn't have power over you. It doesn't mean you don't feel emotions. It means that the anger that usually would come in and get hit and triggered in you because it had something to hit, it had some ego or trauma to hit, it comes in, it wants to show it to you. Well, now you've processed that. So the anger comes through and it's like, hey, buddy. Hi, anger. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. No, there's nothing here. Thank you for trying to show me to see if there's anything left that needed to be merged with. So it just moves through. And this is a measurable result of this merging of consciousness, merging with any density, merging with any pressure or challenge or pain or fear. And it shows you more and more and more your own essence, because the exact things that you feared will show you exactly who you are. I've always feared things like being possessed, because then I wouldn't have my mind to be able to know and see properly for other people and do my job. Totally separated from ways to be able to get the information I really wanted to know about so I could integrate and understand more. And all that slowly left me to a point where I said, well, I guess my real greatest fear is that I won't know, that I won't know. And then I welcomed the never knowing again. My greatest fear that I'll never know anything again. And you know what? It's wonderful. It's wonderful not to know anything, because then my pure essence of wonder can do its real job. And then Elizabeth's not trying to control it or fear it or anything like that. And that's what it feels like. And that's what's possible.
Oh, that's nice, Elizabeth. Because then it's a relief, it's an allowing to happen and process. And as things come through, it's the next thing for us to work on and we can sit with it and let it be fluid and allow it to show us, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. And it's a process of growing and clearing and really removing
Yeah,
all of those things, those patterns and beliefs and everything that we've picked up along the way, and allowing them to process through, and leave them behind.
and this leads you to the opening up of the dimensions of consciousness, all of which the human body are capable of embodying. Now, it's the last triad of consciousness, 10, 11, and 12, that leads you into stillness. And that one's the hard one to really get to, because that's when you've surrendered even your own witness state. And you've surrendered all of your desires, and you don't go into it, you go back into it, you fall into it. It's the amazing torsion of spin that happens in this universe that takes you to stillness. And every example of physical reality, and some, that's exactly what it looks like. So you go into the center of a galaxy, there's a singularity which holds that galaxy together. And the same is with us. There's the singularity of consciousness, and we go back into stillness. And as we do that, we all merge in consciousness, and humans are capable of this. And that's what we'll continue to experiment in. That's the new playing ground, is this pure oneness and stillness in feminine consciousness. And it will bring the masculine into it too. And then that great merger and the healing of masculine and feminine, the two giant doors of the golden age opening together. So this is how we get to include our brethren too, our brothers, in this work as well. Eventually it will include them also. But right now, right this moment, has to do with the feminine stepping into their alignment, stepping into power as great conduits of light.
Wonderful. I like that. And joining together and being side by side and coming out of duality and really stepping into that unity. Great. Okay, everyone, start asking some questions. We have 10 more minutes here. I won't say your name. You can ask some questions. Great. Anyone in the chat? Elizabeth?
And there might not be, which is okay.
Listening. Any more pearls of wisdom, Elizabeth, that you would like to share with us? We're being a little shy today.
Noticing that incredible creativity. There's this immense creativity that's happening. So this question came up, and it says, if someone steps in and the experience is too overwhelming. Oh yeah. So when we feel overwhelmed, right? It's an over. So a lot of times when someone feels overwhelmed, they can't think anymore. How do you know you're really overwhelmed? You can't think very clearly. You fall asleep when someone's talking, or maybe you showed up to an event and it's like you're just knocked out in like 5 minutes. That's a good example of someone actually in a sensory overwhelm. And then empath overwhelm, pretty consistent feeling of just and too much information, right? So that's when you want to do, I like to do what's called a heart command. And I figured this out in desperation one day, where I'm like, I think I might explode. So what do I need to do? And I remembered that the heart creates that big electromagnetic field around the body. Cells, I can see it. It's talking to all my cells. So I'm going to use it. It's like a command center, I guess. It sure is. And I said, dear heart, please lift this overwhelm out of my whole body and field now. And then I took a deep breath. And it literally lifts it out. But then you want to replace it with something because of physics. So what do I want to replace it with? Dear heart, please fill my whole body with and field with clarity now. And take another deep breath. And then there's another frequency that comes in. And if it still feels overwhelming, you keep doing it because a lot of times it's layers of stuff that have built up in the field. We're all these beautiful, bright lights. We attract all kinds of interesting things. So just addressing it, and whatever's left in you, then you notice it, welcome it, do another shifting of a frequency, and then replace it. And I like to say now, my whole body and my whole field. That way it includes my outer field, because we have our personal bubble and our big outer field. And then I say now, because the body is technology. It's very smart. It wants you to tell it exactly when to do it. And the deep breath is like the enter button. It tells the parasympathetic nervous system that this change is okay. So that's a quick way to get through the fog, overwhelmed static. That can happen anywhere. So you're in the grocery store, you're on the highway. This is that nice, fast way to use that powerful field and then connect it again and again out to the divine feminine. So in meditation, you can be doing that, saying, dear heart, please, the divine feminine on this planet. Enlighten my whole divine feel and body with my radiant light, my essence, my frequency now. And take a deep breath. And you can feel your heart reach out and take everybody's hands. Good. I love that. I love the practical, making sure we know what to do in the moment. So thank you for that. Overwhelm is a thing. It needs to be addressed.
Great. We have a question. How do you let grief pass? Like you said, sit with anger and let it pass. How do you sit with grief and let it pass when all you have left of a person idea is grief, the missing them?
Yeah. So you're reading a book called Grief. In this very precious book, you're moving through it and you've learned so much. And now you've got to this part where this question comes in. Now what? All that's left is the book of grief you've been reading, right? It's a frequency that's full of that much information, and you've been standing in it. In the library, you're in the section called Grief, and you picked up a book that was written just for you about this grief. And so here in this part of the book, it's going to tell you, and I'll help you with this now. It's going to say, and now you merge with grief as a whole. All of the grief, not just what you're feeling too, is also your ancestors' grief. It's written in your DNA. In your body house, there is a mountain of trash bags written in the DNA about grief, all different kinds of grief. The grief of your best friend, the grief of your parent, your spouse, your child, the grief of the loss of your pet. All of these are in this story of you in this body. And you have this chance now to allow all those trash bags to be fully known, those that were yours and those that are your ancestors, by simply saying, I welcome the whole of it, the whole of all grief right now. Will this feel good? No, it won't, because your body is going to say, oh, I can really feel all those trash bags. And what do? They want to burn away. They want to burn away. So you're going to feel the burning. You're going to feel the tension and the density in the body as it begins to be cleared with your consciousness all the way at the back of that house. And I want that so much. I want to be in that pure love so much that I'm willing to even love grief and what it has taught me as a soul. And with that love, my friend, there's nothing you can't shift through, and it will burn away layer by layer. And you just open it up, let it burn, let it go through. And then your whole body begins to feel lighter and lighter and lighter. And so measure this, do this regularly. Where is the grief in my body? I welcome this layer. Where is it now? And now. And you keep doing it until, okay, I actually feel like I understand grief now. Now it doesn't feel separate from me anymore. Now I can embody the knowledge and wisdom of grief so that it doesn't have to remain as density in my body anymore. And on the other side of that, you're going to see more of yourself. And that's how you do it.
Great.
At least from my vantage point.
That's
Lots of ways to.
Thank you. And lots of thank yous. Thank you for sharing. I love your formula for following what's separate. Thank you so much for sharing. Wonderful. And how can people get a hold of you, Elizabeth, if they want to work with you or check out your work? So we have about 5 more minutes.
I actually have when I'm finished, but I wanted you to come and grab some of the gifts that I have available: music, a guided meditation with music, an ebook about the 3 minds and healing your brain, your heart, and your gut, a class about opening your third eye through the imagination, and then regular monthly check-ins that will be really important for all of us in this coming year at the end of each month. So I'll post that link, but it's seerandscientist.com is where you can see more about what I do and who I am. But I'll send that special link with those gifts that will be in the chat for you as well. But I really appreciate all of that, all of you showing up in divine feminine consciousness right now. It's so key, it's so perfect, and we're just right on it. Look how on it we really are. I'm so pleased with how powerful women really are right now. It's been immense to watch this young, to have watched all of these amazing women have carved this way out for people like us to get together and talk right now without persecution in this way. And it's women who did that. They carved it out for us to get here. And the bungee cord is gone. There's nothing holding us back now in consciousness. Here we are now at the peak, the pinnacle of human shifting and change. And I can't wait to see what this next year will bring.
Me too, Elizabeth. I'm so excited. I like the direction we're headed. And thank you so much, Elizabeth, for joining us. So great to have you.
Thank you all. Namaste.
Namaste. Have a beautiful day, Elizabeth.
You too.
Thanks. Okay. We're going to bring Jenny when Jenny is available. There she is. Hi, Jenny. Just need to unmute.
Okay, there it goes.
Awesome. Wonderful.
How are you?
Great.
That was so beautiful. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Yes.
I was listening to what you were saying about the grief, and I just recently lost a pet. And so I was sitting there and I called it in, and it was interesting because I felt, instead of a clenching, I actually felt my entire body relax. Like, oh, thank God you're just accepting the grief. And my body was like, oh, okay, there it is. There it goes. And I was like thinking, I was like, should I do this? Because if I do it, am I going to start crying right before I have to be on? But that's not what I experienced. What I experienced was actually like a release, a letdown, just kind of like a, I don't know, almost like a coming home in some ways, which is really interesting and I'm like, I love that. So thank you for that. That was such divine timing to the person who asked the question, and then the exercise for me as well. Um, so what I wanted to start off with today is actually talking about some interesting information that I've received very recently, um, actually over the weekend. So, things are shifting and changing as we're going through all of this. But the way that I bring information in is often very visual. And sometimes it has to work through my own library, my own reference field. And so I knew that there was some shifting energy going on in the planet. And I kept saying, okay, what is this? I can feel it. There's a quickening happening. What is this? What is this? We're shifting. And so what they actually showed me was cattle chutes. And I don't know if any of you guys are aware of what these are, but what people will do, the cowboys out in the West, they will herd all the cattle into one area, and it's like a big corral. And then they eventually narrow them down into chutes until they're one by one. And it was really funny. I was telling a friend of mine this, and she said, but those chutes usually lead to the slaughterhouse. And I'm like, but this one doesn't. And so what they were saying to me is we're at this place now. We are literally moving locations. And it may not, nothing's going to look different. That's not really how it works. But what we can do now is we're accessing a new space, a higher vibration. It's very much unlimited potential is what we're accessing now. And so I said, well, okay, well, talk to me about these shoots. What is this? And they said, it's a squeezing. It's a absolute and complete squeezing of everyone so that they get rid of their belief systems, the things that we've attached to, the things that we've come to call normal in our society, which is really hilarious because so much of our world is so upside down, but yet we've accepted it as normal. And so I was like, oh, okay. All right. I think I'm getting this. And I'm like, and how quickly we move through the shoots, if you will, really depends on how quickly can we strip down the belief systems, the things that we brought in, the things that were put on us. When you opened up this uh, entire empowerment workshop talking about, all the different things that women are now able to do that they couldn't do just recently, or, the belief systems and the things that are just kind of put on women. When you look at the dichotomy of how difficult it is to be a working mother, things like that. When you look at that, I look at my girls, I've got 4 girls, and 3 of them had babies in 2020. Like the first time grandma, and all of a sudden there's 3, right? And I'm going, a little bit of overwhelm, but I'm watching them and I'm watching some of that struggle and how some of the strides that I've made as far as breaking through boundaries have actually helped them. And just some of the things that I said to them early on, like, hey, no, this is violating my boundary. I am not going to, be a doormat for you all or anyone else. And at the time they didn't like it. But then now they're like, oh my gosh, mom, thank you. Because if they didn't have that background, they wouldn't be telling their mates, you get the baby now because I need a break. They would have taken on what so many women do. But that's only one tiny little example, but it's one that hits home for a lot of us. Because, when you start to look at everything that women have taken on, it's a lot. It's a lot. And what we're holding within our bodies, on our shoulders, and everything that we're doing. So back to the shoots. So I said to them, I said, okay, how long are we going to be in these shoots? And they said, it depends on the person. How quickly can we strip down? But what happens as we're going through these shoots, first it's everybody's kind of corralled in and it just gets narrower and narrower and narrower. The more that we are able to access, gosh, it's everything. It's all that we are. And once you get out of the chutes, it's this field, and it's this gorgeous quantum field of absolute and complete potential. And it's the potential for manifestation, for healing, for equality. It is the pure potential that we are moving into without the constraints that we've been living with, because we have been living with constraints. And those are what is lifting now. So I thought that that was like really amazing. And while that can be very difficult, it started making sense to what they had also recently shown me a couple weeks ago. And that was the moment of conception. And I was working with someone, and all of a sudden I see the egg and I see the sperm, and I'm kind of going, "Ooh, what am I watching here?" And the sperm goes into the egg, and there's a flash, a beautiful flash. And in that moment, it's totality. It's everything. You're not a gender. You're not a race. You're not where you live. You're not anything. You are that beautiful, whole, complete, divine blueprint. And where Elizabeth was talking about the flash and that, that moment to where we can just be, that's what we're returning to, because we had it at the very moment of conception. And that's what we're working on. We're working on unlayering everything that came in after that moment. And when I'm talking about what are we layered with, the minute the cells began to divide, we took on the ancestral DNA. We took on family patterns, family karma, health issues. We absolutely took on belief systems. So immediately it was, what sex are we going to be? What religion, in many cases, because you chose the family that you were coming into, which then brought in a set of belief systems with that. Where are you going to be born? What grid are you attaching to? And the grids, they're really something. I didn't realize it as much until I spent some time in the UK. And on the flight back, I'm asleep on the plane. And I had the little monitor going, showing like location. I couldn't wait to get home. I had been gone for a little bit and really missed my family. And so I had the monitor going with how far along the journey was. And I'm looking at it. And so I'm asleep. And all of a sudden I felt this jolt in my body, and I opened my eyes and I'm like, huh. And I knew it wasn't turbulence because it was an internal jolt. And I look, and we were right over like the continental shelf, right around coming right into New York. And I felt something like shoop, just anchor right in. And I was like, that's really interesting. What is that? And so I just kind of sat with it and felt it and just absolute observation. And what came in was, okay, how am I going to do this? Do I have enough time to create this? Have I done enough business wise? Okay, what does my calendar look like? It was absolute, just my mind went from being very serene and calm to busy, 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 busy. How am I going to achieve that American dream? The 2.5 kids, the big house, the car. And it was so fascinating to see it. And I was like, whoa, that's a really rough grid. And yet, that's what you're born into if you're born into in America. Now, other countries, every country has their own grid. And, it was one of my grandbabies was born in Turkey. And they said to me when I was communicating during that time, they said it is so important that she is not born in the American grid. And I thought, isn't that funny? That she's going to be one of the change makers. And if she was latched into that grid, it would just be one more thing that she needs to remove. So the moment of conception, we are whole. We are complete. We are not a gender. We are not a race. We're not a nationality. We just are in our totality. and the cells begin to divide. And with that comes in the experience of separation. And all of this is an experience of separation. We've learned a lot. We've learned a whole lot. And I love how Elizabeth said, we've learned that love triumphs. And it does. Because when you get back to that base state, that's all there is. It's you and your totality without judgment, without worry, without any of the things that divides us. So on a spiritual journey, it's our job to unravel all of this so that we can return back to the wholeness and that complete divine blueprint. And we can't necessarily I can't change the fact that I'm a female or that I'm Caucasian. I can't change that, or the fact that I was born on the East Coast. But I can change the programming that came in with it. Because all of those have levels of programming. And that's what we can change. And it's important for us to see it. And it's not always easy to see it. So when they were talking to me about all this, and the shoots and the fact that, this is the time we're being squeezed so that we can see it. And it's important that we see whatever it is we're holding, whatever bias we're holding, whatever belief system, whatever it is that keeps us in that little box, whatever that is, we have to see it now. But I was still a little like, I don't know, I need something more. I need something a little bit more concrete. So I asked for that. I said, you guys got to give me something. I need some sort of like concrete thing I can go with to really understand things. And I kid you not, 15 minutes later, here comes my husband. I wasn't even expecting him. And he came to drop something off and he looks at me and goes, "Do you know carrots are poisonous to rabbits?" I look at him, I said, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, carrots are poisonous to rabbits." And I said, "Oh." And I said, "Well, we have wild bunnies out front and I have thrown out carrots. They don't touch them. But if you throw a head of cabbage, holy cow, like they like their cabbage." And I said, that's really interesting because we had pet rabbits, but they would eat carrots." And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Look it up." I looked it up and they're really not good for them. And he said, he learned it on a radio show that morning. And he said, the reason that everyone believes that rabbits love carrots is because of Bugs Bunny. And I was like, that's the programming. So Bugs Bunny started in the 40s and you see Bugs with his carrot. And so now here we are, 80 years later, and people automatically assume rabbits like carrots. And the funny thing is, a lot of domesticated rabbits will eat carrots. It's really bad for them. It causes diabetes, and too much will actually kill them. But it's ironic because we wouldn't know, And I was like, thank you for the concrete example, because that's such a tiny little thing. But yet it's evidence of how many other things have we just accepted because it's what we've seen, what we've heard. I was born in the 70s. That was Bugs Bunny time. So, and I had rabbits as a kid and they got carrots, and I mean, and Oreos too. My mom would always feed them Oreos, but, so the whole sugar thing, it wasn't good for them no matter what. But looking at that, I'm going, how many other things are there that I call truth because that's what I've picked up along the way and it isn't truth? That's the process we're in now. Can we unravel it all? Can we get to the state of surrender and going, I don't know anything. I don't know anything. And in that surrender, it's easier to get into the totality of all that we are. If you can think of the belief systems as cords that separate us, that keep us locked in, it starts to make more sense. They really showed me with my dog passing, actually. And the morning that she passed, they had said to me, they said, look at her quantum field and unravel her. And I had not ever done anything like that before. And they said, unravel it and you can help her release the cords, all except the one silver life cord. And the way that it looked to me was a thick rope. Okay. So if you think about a rope is twisted, but it's multiple things twisting. And within each one of the things, there's cords twisting in that. You unravel it? Can you look at each of those pieces and then just start saying, nope, I'm not my gender. I'm not my race. I'm not my nationality. I'm not any of these things that have defined me. And so I did it for her, and she was able to pass. And at that point, they said, do you see? Do you see how many there were? And she was a dog. Not that a dog is limited, because I'm going to tell you that she was one of the best space holders out there. But it was different because there weren't as many belief systems as there are within humans and within humanity and within our systems. And, it's very fascinating when you start to look at that and you start to go, okay, what is truth? And it's not only what is the truth, but what is my truth? And what hits here and makes my heart sing? And what makes it so that I am whole and not separate? And I had an experience. It really wasn't long before my dog passed, and she went downhill so quickly, it would make your head spin. Like it was just, she was honestly full of life up until the very last 2 weeks, if that. Um, and, but I was getting clues prior to that. I didn't take the clues because I wasn't really ready to accept that my dog was leaving. But one of the things was I was dreaming and I was on the other side, wherever, whatever you want to call that place. And I was working in the goddess energy, and it was just so wonderful. So wonderful. That pure, beautiful, divine feminine. And, and they said to me, they said, it's time for you to go. And I saw some steps and I start walking down the steps. And the further I went, the yuckier their steps went. They were just gross. They were concrete, they were wet, and they was like starting to get stinky. And I'm like, what is this? Up here it was just so beautiful and light. Well, I wake up and I'm like, okay, what was that? But then I realized the staircase is within me. And I'm like, oh, so I was thinking, is there a soul piece at the bottom I need to get? What is this? But I knew enough, like, if I'm afraid of it, I run to it because it's the only way that I get through things. And so I'm like, fine, I'm going to sit here and go down these steps. Well, I get down to the bottom and it is dark and I can't see a thing. And the feeling was absolute and complete loneliness. It was unbelievable. And I'm sitting there and I'm sitting on the bed and I'm just bawling. And my husband comes out of the shower. He goes, what's wrong? I said, well, I had a dream and there's a staircase in me and now I'm all alone. And he's like, oh, okay. And he's like, well, what do you need? I'm like, I have no idea. And so just then a friend messages me and I'm like, let me just tell her what's going on. And she says to me, she's like, light a candle. I was like, good idea. I mean, it was so funny. I was in despair. That's the word I have for it. Despair. So I'm in my little inner world and it's all dark. And I'm like, okay, yep, this is my world. I'm going to light a candle. So I light a candle and all of a sudden I'm like, I've got this taper candle and I'm looking around and there's angels and the ascended masters and there's guides. And I look around and I'm like, holy cow, not for 1 second was I alone? Not 1 second. And I was like, oh. And then at that moment, the energy opened up and Sophia walks in and she said, the only thing that you're holding that's keeping you distorted is the thought that you have ever been separate. You've never been alone. You've never been separate, and you never left heaven, or whatever your idea is of the other side or of heaven, whatever word hits that for you. And at that moment, it was so crystal clear how we hold the separation within ourselves. And that's what we're working on. We're working on merging back into our wholeness and into the remembrance of the fact that we never left heaven. We never are alone. The division was part of this experience. The separation was part of this experience. And as we move into this new location, this new it's a new field. It's a new way of opening up. And as we move into that, we're able to experience ourselves on a much fuller level. It is pure totality. And it's very, really, very, very exciting for me. So it's essential that we start to see like all of our limitations, all the ways that we put ourselves in a box, all the ways that we've accepted what we've been told, and whether it's self-imposed or whether it's imposed from the outside, doesn't matter if it does the same thing, because it just puts us in this box. And once we become truly empowered by getting rid of the separation, getting rid of the limited beliefs, then we begin to act more from that heart space. It just becomes natural. The head's kind of takes that back seat, and it just becomes so much more natural to be in the heart. And it helps you to tackle your fears and heal your traumas and anything that keeps us from returning back to, anything that stops us from returning back to that divine blueprint, back to unity, back to wholeness. And it's really through empowerment that we break down all those barriers that we know shouldn't exist. We know they shouldn't. And so it's through empowerment that we knock them down. We knock them down within ourselves, and that helps to knock them down within the outer world. But first, it's here. Liz, you're muted if you were going to say something.
No, I was just thinking how beautiful this is and how well articulated you and Elizabeth are at explaining this for everyone who's listening today, and how blessed we are to have you both.
Well, I'm grateful for this space. It takes a lot to put something like this together and hold the space for it. And, it's like you're the container at the moment.
Does anyone have any questions after all of that yumminess? And I have to say, when you were talking, I got a couple different downloads. I had goosebumps on my goosebumps all the way up my neck. I'm like, oh gosh, that's so right on. Okay, so I'm going to ask a question. So people might be thinking, how do we change that program? How do we bring awareness to these programs that we have, and how do we shift those?
Okay. So first is it's really kind of looking at yourself. It's stepping into that observation mode of like, I need to see, what is it that I'm thinking? What is it I'm feeling? How am I reacting? And often the programming comes out as knee-jerk reactions. And that's how it's kind of like programmed. And um, an example about this, there was something my oldest was talking about it. And she was talking about how essentially sometimes boys didn't know how to really treat a girl. And such a simple little thing, right? And I remembered vividly, she was on the bus and this boy hit her with his drumstick on her head. She gets off the bus. She's mad. I mean, she's a firecracker anyway. And she's mad. And my response was, well, he probably likes you. And I look back at that response. I mean, and she's 26 now. I mean, so she was probably like 13, 14 then. And talking about now, I look back at that response and I'm like, I just told my daughter that a boy hitting her means he likes her. And at the time, I was so lost in programming, I didn't even realize it because I was saying what I had always heard, what my mother had said to me. Right. And it's like that, oh, he must like you. That's why he's pulling your pigtails. No, he's a freaking jerk. Yeah. Right. And so it's such an interesting world as I'm watching this. I mean, so that's what I'm saying. It's like, can you start looking at the programming you hold, the things that don't make sense? Like how, like in no one's world should hitting someone mean you like them.
Right.
And yet that has been the discussion. I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's been the norm.
I heard it in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Young boy, little boy writes me a love note. I show my mom. She shows his mom. His mom says something to him, and he comes to school the next day and pop right in the middle, right? She goes, "Oh, that's just because he was embarrassed and he likes you." Like,
Right.
and growing up and learning what I've learned, there's no way I would have said that, to my
Right.
daughter, or I would have, maybe, I had caught myself, saying things that my mother had said to my children when I was stuck in the programming way back when in my late 20s and early 30s.
Right.
Out they came, just like out it came for you,
Right.
So you think, oh, I'm not going to be like my mom, I do differently. And yay, we are supposed to work and do these things, but we fall into it. And that's like, there it is right there. I just said
Yeah.
it. And this is
Yeah.
what we need to shift. And then how
Exactly.
can I get back,
Right. Exactly. And it's kind of looking at that and going, wow. But the only way to do that is to be in observation and to be willing to be wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times do we double down on something because we don't want to be wrong? We're like, oh, no, it's right now. I'm going to make it right. It doesn't matter if it's wrong because we're not able to go, wow, I really made some serious mistakes. And accepting that as part of that learning and going through. So my advice for everyone is step back, particularly now. I mean, it's crazy right now. And it's noisy. And I mean, I'm finding I'm pulling completely out of social media. It's like I still post things now and then, but the scrolling, it's not really happening. My body doesn't like it. And I realize like I have a lot to do, whether it's to read a book or it's to meditate or even watch TV. It's like I have other things to do than to allow myself to be infected by other people's versions of reality.
Mhm.
And, it's seeing that and kind of going, okay, where am I triggered? Being triggered is a really good thing. Where am I not able to allow the experience to be what it is? And I have found, and I mean, I'm sure any of you guys that are parents, there's a lot of allowing that we have to do. And a lot of allowing that we have to do because we can't force our version of reality on anyone else. And we also know we all made our own mistakes and we had to learn and we had to grow from them. So it's kind of like taking that hands back with everything that's exterior, but a hands on with everything interior and saying, I need to observe this. What is my reaction? What does my body say? And is what I am looking at, is it truth? And a lot of us can look at stuff and go, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's been manipulated. And if you don't know, then you detach the belief from it. So, because I couldn't tell you right now, looking at the outer world, what the truth is, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I look at it, and if something triggers me, I'm like, oh, that made me really mad, which seems to be the, dominant, feeling right now. Then I pull back and I go, why is this making me mad? Do I even know that that's true? And the answer generally 9 times out of 10 comes in, no, it was designed for the reaction. So, okay, all right, I see you. And I use my hands a lot. I don't know, you'd think I was Italian. And I'm just like, okay, see that cord? Out of here. And I just push it away. I just push it away. Because if I can't come into an alignment with it within me, it's an external belief that I picked up somewhere along the way. It's not me. It's not my absolute truth. So I push it out of my field. And Elizabeth described it as flowing through your field. It's really the same words. I mean, it's different words, same thing. It's kind of saying, I'm not attaching to you. I'm not allowing you to anchor in. I'm not allowing you to hook in. So does that help?
Yes, great advice. Yeah, great tip and tool and great explanation for sure. Thank you so much, Jenny.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So wonderful to have you with us today. Thank you so much.
I'm happy to be here. I'm
And
happy to be here.
people reach you. I'm going to go ahead and plug your offer in.
Okay. So, yeah, let me talk about my offer. So, um, perfect timing when Liz contacted me. I was in the midst of deciding to offer a class in January, and it is Walking in Your Personal Power. And it's a 4-session workshop. So it's online. So you go online for the course to learn everything, to do your activities, your journaling. It's a journal heavy course. I will say that. And then we meet as a group 4 times every 2 weeks. So it begins January 11th and then it goes into February. And we take a deep dive, a real deep dive into what does it mean to walk into your personal power. But it's simultaneously teaching you the walking in your power while simultaneously unlayering you of the things that are not you. So part of what you would learn is the 5 main things that you need to work on and heal and understand to walk in your own power. And I work a lot with the Ascended Masters, the Galactic Councils. So a lot of their information is in there. And learning how to unravel those obligations and expectations that keep us living in limitation. We've got the holidays coming up. You want to talk obligation? So much obligation with the holidays. And every year I'm doing less and less. It's actually quite interesting. I'm like, nope. And I even said it before. I'm like, you know what? We're just going to do hors d'oeuvres. Like I'm not doing these huge meals anymore. It's not where I am. And I'm like, I'll host it. You all want to cook. That's fine. But I've started putting up some big boundaries on stuff. And I'm like, we're not doing this. We're not going broke for Christmas. For what? So it's been a process. And so I want everyone to pay attention this holiday. What annoys the ever living crap out of you? What are you? I know, isn't that? But that's the truth. That is such a thing of like, what is it that's made me mad? Why did it make you mad? Do you feel put out? Do you feel obligated? Do you feel out of control in your own life? So it's one of the reasons, like for anyone who signs up, we're doing it after the holidays because the holidays is our pressure cooker. Not to mention the fact that, being in the shoots as they've showed it is going to be a pressure cooker anyway. But that's the perfect space for observation. And so you can start going, why do I do these things? Well, like, where did that come from? And what happens if I don't do them? Do I feel less than? Do I feel like I'm not a good mom? Do I feel like I'm not a good wife? And looking at that. Because all of that is that fear. So part of the class is working with 7 concrete ways to work through your fears. And fears cripple us. They absolutely cripple us. And they leave us in a box. It's like we create this little boxy world. I feel safe in here. But you may have felt safe for a little while, but then it becomes your prison. And so you're also going to learn how to forgive yourself. So many empaths, so many light workers on this path, man, you can forgive anybody, anything. When you turn that mirror around and you start looking at yourself, that's where so many have problems. I was talking to one of my girls today, and I said to her, I said, you're having some adrenal issues. Like, are you taking your adrenal support? And she's like, no, I've been really bad. And she said, when I was pregnant, I took my supplements every day. She's like, but it's a new mom thing. I said, no, honey, it's not a new mom thing. I said, he was so uber important to you. You took those supplements to make sure he was healthy. Why aren't you just as important?
Wow. Yeah.
And I mean, and when you look at that, and I said to her, I said, I was one of those people, I used to smoke. I know. And I was able to quit during both pregnancies of my older girls before I finally quit for good. And I said, it was nothing. I found out I was pregnant. Ooh, nope, not smoking anymore. Can't do that to the baby. And then I'd breastfeed, and then boom, I'd go right back to smoking. Why? I had already beat the addiction, the physical part of it anyway, but I hadn't beat the self-abuse. I hadn't beat that yet. And it was really my love for my children made it easy for me to do what I needed to do. But the love wasn't the same when it came down to me. So learning to just love yourself and forgive yourself. And so you'll learn tips on forgiving yourself and really freeing yourself from the doubt and the shame and the guilt that so many of us have taken on, even from just the simple fact of being a woman on this planet. There's a collective, just shame and guilt, and it's heavy. And then you're also going to learn how to increase your self-love, but with boundaries. And what does that mean to make a boundary? What comes up when you put yourself first? What happens? And then also realizing that everyone who walks in their own personal empowerment, they empower others naturally. It can be no other way. So I've got an early bird special until December 11th. The course actually starts January 11th. I've got the 11s going, which is so funny because I didn't totally plan it that way, but that is absolutely how it worked out. The true to technology being crazy, the payment field is all messed up, and my computer guy is actually in Australia asleep right now. So when you register, it's not going to ask you to pay, but I will invoice you if you register. But I'll get it fixed within the next 24 hours as soon as he wakes up. And I'm really looking forward to it. It's a big course. It's a big course. And if you're ready for that deep dive and you want someone to hold your hand through it, to where you can talk with others who are going through the same exact process, which I think is really important, because oftentimes I see my own stuff because someone else mentioned it. But if I just looked at it like right here, I missed all that's over here. But then someone else will mention it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have that too. And so working in a group that way and hearing people's experiences is really, really helpful in helping us bust through these walls, the walls of separation that we have inside.
Great. That's going to be fabulous, Jenny.
Yeah,
Take
it's a good course.
Guys, it's going to be a great course. Thanks for offering that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for being here today. I appreciate
Thank you. I appreciate you too.
All right, thanks. All right, guys. Next up is Aimee Cartier. Hi, Aimee. Can you unmute? There you go.
Oh, good. Okay. I was just typing in there. It's telling me the host is not allowing people to unmute.
Totally dreamt about this before. It's so funny. You just triggered that memory.
What was that?
I said I totally dreamt about this.
Oh, did you?
Trigger that my little dream of you I'm having right now. Thank you for that.
My pleasure, I guess.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. And I just have to, I feel like I want to start out by saying what a joy it is to see all of you. I can't see the participants, but I know you're there. But it feels so lovely to me to be watching each of these women, lovely women in their essence and doing what it is that they do and getting to witness this as a part of this sisterhood and not just us panelists, but also all of everybody here. And it just feels such a delight really to be witness to all of these really amazing women approaching this particular topic of empowerment from how they do it. And so thank you, Liz, for hosting this and for inviting me and all of us, because that's really fun. Yeah.
Okay.
So what I want to talk about today is something that is near and dear to my heart, and basically the one big piece of the work that I do in the world. And it's under the heading of owning your intuition. It's I'll just say that for starters. So that's the approach that I'm going to take. And that's just as everybody is giving their who they are and how they look. This is what I do. And this is how I look at it. And one of my delights is really breaking down intuition to something that's manageable and understandable for people, because I feel like it's this very nebulous idea a lot of times for people, and people have a hard time trusting it. And I really like to just tick off the things that prevent each of us from owning this really important power that I feel that each of us has. There are no exceptions. It's a sense that each of us has to allow our own flourishing. And I'm going to talk about that in a second, a little bit more. But I think I also wanted to start by just addressing, in my way, what I see where we are at this moment in time. And I've been loving hearing Jenny and Elizabeth give their take and their insight. And when I was thinking about this today, our empowerment workshop here, and thinking about where we are collectively as a whole and what is going on, I really feel similar to these two that we're on this precipice right now. And, the future is going to need a whole lot of imagining. It's going to need a whole lot of vision. It's going to need a whole lot of insight. We've seen over the last many months just one thing after another be revealed to us that needs to be fixed. Just literally one thing after another, starting with, probably, anyway, it doesn't matter what it was starting with. I think we all know that it's like on a weekly or, it's like sometimes on a daily basis, one other thing, because we become aware of one other thing that is collectively, that we're all involved in collectively, and that is needing solutions, is needing healing, is needing revisioning, is needing reparations, is needing a different way of operating. And I feel like one of the benefits of the pandemic and the fact that we've all had to shut down is that we really have the time to look at that right now. We're like, whoa, and here's another thing that is absolutely not working. And what are we going to do about it now? So I feel like this is the time, actually, before I even say what time I feel like it is right now about solutions, I also feel like it's necessary to acknowledge the deep fatigue that is happening for people. It looks different for each of us. It looks, and I love how each of you have addressed it so far, of what it looks like is coming up, looking at your own stuff and coming up with these, we're each as one of you was mentioning, we're pulling away the layers and looking at this thing. But I feel like I can't really start talking about how vital it is moving forward and your intuition and what it looks like without just acknowledging the deep fatigue that we're all feeling. And like some of you have already been mentioning, I feel like the only way through that is one, just accepting it. So I was on a different program yesterday and she was asking me, well, how do you deal with this? And I was like, well, the first thing is similar to what you guys are saying. You have to just accept, I'm really angry today. I'm really sad today. I'm really whatever. And you move through that emotion. But I feel like I just have to start with acknowledging that piece of we're on a precipice. What is absolutely necessary moving forward is this deep visioning and innovation and solutions. And it's important to be aware of and maintain and care for whatever internal state we're in right now. That's all part of the process, literally a part of the process, as each of you who've spoken so far have pointed out in different ways. So that being said, I want to talk about intuition. I want to talk about what it is. I want to break it down and make it really clear for all of us because I really feel like it's the thing that's going to move us forward, each of us. So each of us individually and also collectively, it's where solutions lie. So what is intuition? Intuition, from my perspective, is your highest wisdom, your absolute highest knowing. It's information or conversation or directive from your own highest self, which every single one of us has. Or sometimes it's information or conversation from, or communication is the word I'm looking for, from your own ethereal guides, which again, each of us have. No matter who you are, we all have ethereal guides. So intuition is the communication from that. It's a communication from your own highest self. It's a communication sometimes from your ethereal guides. It's a natural aspect of being human. In fact, it's a sense that humans have relied on since they have existed, truly. And most people, especially most successful people, will tell you that they listen to theirs. Probably all successful people. I mean, I don't know. I haven't interviewed them all, but I feel like anybody who's experienced success is absolutely listening to their intuition. And one of the reasons is that it's the sense that we have that is literally designed to help us flourish. We have nose for smelling, something's burning in the kitchen, or I want to eat that, or whatever, eyes for seeing, all these kinds of things. Your intuition is the sense that you have that is guiding you constantly toward what is best for you, like what is truly best for you. So it's super vital. It's so vital in every way. I also feel like it's the sense that leads us to new ideas. It leads us to innovations. It leads us to solutions, all of which we all know are needed, really, really needed at this moment in history that we all find ourselves living in. On a personal level, it's the sense that you have, like I said, that is designed to help you flourish and to know the things that you need to do in order for you to live your very best life, whatever that means personally for you. It's a very, it's a wonderful sense that's also super particular. That's maybe not the exact word I'm looking for, specific, meaning Liz is designed for Liz's life. Liz's intuition is guiding her for Liz's life. Mine is guiding me for Amy's life. Every single person's own intuition is guiding them toward what is perfect and specific for them in their life. So I like to start by breaking it down, like how vital it is. It's not something to be ignored. And it's not something that should be a backseat driver for, should be a backseat driver. So you're, a backseat driver is like the kind that you ignore. You're like, why are you telling me this? It's so bothersome or whatever. Your intuition is actually more like a passenger in the front seat with you. Your intuition is the one that's looking at the map also picking up all of the other information that's seen and unseen that you might not be able to see. It's the one, your intellect is the part of you that's like, turn on the turn signal, look for cars, move here. Your intuition is the piece of you that is picking up all the other things and saying, you know, I think this is a good way to go. How about this road? How about this direction? So it gives you really valuable and sometimes crucial information that is directly related to your happiness, your flourishing, and your well-being. And I personally don't feel like any of us can afford to ignore this sense any longer, truly. It's time now. We've seen in thousands of ways over the last year, let's just say, that we need something other than we've been doing. And this is the sense that each of us has that guides us to those answers. So one of the other things, a second, let me take a sip of my tea. One of the other things that I feel is dying right now is this idea that someone else is going to save us. No one's going to save us. No one, even, you know, it's up to each and every one of us. And I notice that in so many ways, what is happening is we're letting go of this idea that I think of it kind of as the hero story. It's the one that we all grew up on, of like Star Wars. There's this like magnificent thing. There's like that one person who has the power to change so many things and also levitate and do all these other cool things as well. It's kind of the mythic story that we've grown up on right now, certainly the one that I grew up on. And I definitely see that it has its inspiration. There's motivation in that. But what I notice time and time again is that it's so blown out of the water in terms of the mythic proportions that it exists, that it prevents people from seeing and doing what is true for them in their life. It prevents people from, they think they have to have this, like really mythic is the best word, like mythic impact or something like that, as opposed to understanding that every little action we take is providing for the collective. Every little action that we take is contributing positively to the whole, or not, depending. That it's not really about being the one, and you know, whether it's like the fight. I'm like seeing all these Star Wars scenes in my head, like, you know, the one who like gets the does the thing to gets the to blow up the evil thing or whatever. It's really about the decisions that each of us make every day. And sometimes that's like being a good friend to somebody. Sometimes that's caring for yourself so that you can care for your family. Each of these little tiny decisions that we make ripples out and creates a better world. And oftentimes it starts like with a lot of what the two of you have been saying so far is with this internal business, with this internal looking, what is happening for me? What is coming up for me? What do I need to heal? What do I need to reflect on? Or even like, what do I need right now? I need to not hear anything. I need to sit in the dark with some candles and not be taking in information. I need a bath. I need whatever it is that we need. So what it feels like to me over and over is that it's up to each of us. It's up to each one of us. And I love, it kind of makes me think of something that Elizabeth was saying about the collective and about the unity of everything. And I feel like this election has shown me even of like, that it's really up for, there isn't one person that's going to save us. The president isn't going to save us, even if we agree with him right now. Even the vice president, even though I love the fact that it's a she, that it's Kamala. It's really over and over again about bringing the focus back to what is happening for me. What am I doing right now? It usually starts from within, like I said, and many of you have said, and then it goes out. Okay. I'm just glancing at my notes to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. So one of the ways that I feel that we all arrive at this collective future that this future that we're collectively building, I should say, is by turning to our own inner knowing and by understanding and being guided by it. Okay. Intuition is the born right of every soul. There isn't a person without it. I often feel the way that it feels to me, the words that I use to describe it is it's the soul's compass. It's pointing you in the place that you need to go. And in the bringing it into the bigger picture of what we've been talking about today, right now, it's pointing a lot of us to the changes that we can make internally to help the collective, to help things move forward. It's not, you know, I was personally very happy with the results of this election, but what it showed me is that, wow, there's like a lot of half the people that are still in a different place. That makes me really curious. That makes me wonder, or it makes me aware that there's a lot more work to do, again, on a different level for us to feel unified. It's like many of you know, it's not about us and them. It's really, all of this is very eye-opening to me of like, wow, we have a lot of work to do. Like, what do we need to do in order to feel the unity and bring everybody along, not just the people that voted with us or have the same priorities, but listening to all of us right now. So your intuition is the thing that guides us through the times like where each of us we're all living in right now, where we need many torchbearers. We need many brave and innovative souls to take us to the next place on so many different levels and with, excuse me, with so much different expertise. So, as part of that, I really like to start by talking, when I'm talking about intuition, I really like to start by debunking some of the things that hold us back from it. Because some of the things that prevent us from trusting it, from understanding it, because it can be this nebulous thing. It's a little mysterious, like even breaking it down, even in the role of breaking it down, which is something I do, there's still mystery involved in this nebulous thing, and that feels right and true, and it can't be changed. But there are things that we can do to help understand it, so that we can each use it as a guiding force, essentially. So one of the things that is true about intuition is that it's subtle. So I'm speaking of this in terms of things that are true about it, but also things that usually prevent people from listening to it. You're not ever likely to hear a booming voice from the sky telling you, do this now, or, you know, like feeling somebody physically pick you up and put you on a certain path. You know, occasionally there are spectacular things that happen when you're following your intuition, and they're certainly not undermining those. But the reality is of when you're following your intuition, when you're even listening to it, it's subtle. It's like a soft voice that's in your mind. It's like, I have a good idea. How about this? So it's one of the things that sometimes makes it hard for people, because we want it. There's, you know, we just have this natural tendency of we want it to be loud and super clear, and it's much more rare that it is that way than the fact that it's just like an inkling or something, like an idea, a solution that just popped into your head of like, oh, maybe I should look into this. Maybe I should think about this to solve whatever is happening, whatever particulars are happening in your life at this moment. Another sometimes confusing thing about it is that it's non-linear. So it doesn't, it frequently does not happen that you have a question and then you get the answer. Like, oh, I'm wondering about this. What should I do about this aspect? You know, how can I help my child solve this aspect? And then immediately I have the response. It's not always like that. And so sometimes we can discount it because it doesn't, you know, it's not just like a timeline. You know how it's so beautifully written on a timeline when you can see the whole picture of the things. That's not generally how intuition works. It might be a few days before you get an answer. It might be a long time. You're looking for a new job. You don't get the information about the place that you need to apply until that job is actually available. So it's one of the things that can leave it in this like feeling like you could just shrug it off. Like, oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. You know, I'm just now thinking of this when you know, I was wondering about that a long time ago, etc. So there's a timing of the universe, which I have none of us, but I certainly have no control over. And I've learned over time to literally just trust it, like trust whatever is up for me, trust moving forward and doing that thing. Because once you start to do this more and more, you notice that it's always leading you exactly where you need to be. It's always giving you the information that you need right now. So whether that's sit in your tub and cry, I look at my house, my house is over there. Whether that's like sit in your tub and cry today because all that stuff is coming up, or whether that's find a solution or do something else or go for a walk or whatever it is that you're being guided to do. I find the universe has its own timing, and you can trust that. So the third thing about intuition that is sometimes it seems like it's hard for people is because you sometimes can't find a reason to do the thing that your intuition is telling you. Sometimes it gives you information that isn't backed up by your intellect. For example, my most, I don't know if favorite is the right way to describe it, but the most powerful learning I had about that happened in my 20s. This is when I understood, like, it was impactful for me on so many levels. It's where I learned that I could not ever not trust my intuition. I have to lean on it every single time. And that it always guides me to the right place, even if I don't understand it. At the time, I was an environmentalist at the time, running campaigns for the Sierra Club. It's kind of irrelevant what I was doing, except for the fact that there was a community of other like-minded, I was within a community of other like-minded people. And there was a guy there who I was interested in, found him attractive, and he also found me attractive and was pursuing me. But every time I had this feeling, like I would see this image of a 10-foot pole. Literally, I'd be like, I think like that's how much distance we should keep between he and I. And he was pretty, maybe relentless isn't quite the right word because it sounds like it's something terrible, which it didn't feel at the time, but he was relentless in his pursuit in one way or another. And so, you know, he just kept knocking, even though I was like, and after a while I was like, why? I did inquiries. I like investigated within my community. What do you know about him? Like, you know, secretly trying to figure out why my intuition was telling me this isn't the person for me to date. I couldn't find any results. Everybody was like, "Oh, he's a good guy. He was an environmental lawyer. He was like within the realm of what I was doing at that moment in time." Nobody had a terrible thing to say about him, and I couldn't find a reason. So I literally overrode my intuition because I couldn't find a reason. I was like, "We share values. You know, I don't really know why my intuition would be telling me this, and I find him attractive." So eventually, I just let it break me down. I overrode what I knew to be true because I couldn't find a reason. So cut to a year and a half later, and there's all this drama of him cheating on me and blah, blah, blah. And, it's ancient history now, but when all this happened and it ended in this dramatic and traumatic situation, one of my first thoughts was, I knew that I shouldn't date him. I knew this from the very beginning, and it was subtle. It wasn't like, do not do this because it's going to be all this drama and you're going to, this is going to hurt and blah, blah, blah. That's not how your intuition speaks. It was, that's not good. No, this isn't a good idea. So that particular lesson taught me so locked in on so many levels. I don't need a reason. I, in fact, don't ever need a reason to trust my intuition. The fact that I'm having this intuition, this insight is reason alone, period. Because you may not know at the time. And you know what? Had I trusted my intuition, I would have never known. And that would have been totally fine with me to never know, in this case, why I shouldn't have dated him, to move on, to do something else. So, again, your intuition is always trying to point you to the good road, the one that feels the best, the one that has all the goodness, the one that gives you all the best things, that feels juicy and lovely and nourishing and allows you to be who you are, to flower, to offer what you're here to do in this world. Okay. So let me glance at my notes here. So you don't need a reason. If your intuition is telling you something, that's reason enough. Let my story of learning this be your story of learning this so that you don't have to experience that for yourself. So I want to talk here a minute also about how intuition speaks to you. Related to what I was just saying, it never told me, do not date Brad. This is a bad idea, MA. It was just, no. Kept trying to say, no. Your intuition, I like to say, it does not speak theories, okay? It does not come to you or speak to you in like fearful, frantic ways. It does not tell you, it does not try to coerce you by giving you all of the crappy things that may go wrong if you do this thing, okay? When you're hearing those thoughts, that is not your intuition, okay? It's something that comes up so commonly in my students, and people are always asking me, how do I tell the difference? How do I know it's my inner knowing versus, something I'm afraid of or what I should be? So it's a really clear way to tell, and that is the tone that it comes to you on, okay? Your intuition will never speak to you in a frantic, or if you don't, mine has this sense of, if you don't do this, this is going to happen, like you better do this, Amy, because if you don't, blah, 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 all these things are not going to fall into place, etc. I noticed that pretty much everybody has a usual tone. Some people it's worried. This is the voice of not your intuition, but your fearful, your fear knowing, I guess is one way to say it, just to differentiate. So you can just start by paying attention. I've noticed a long time ago, mine was frantic. I noticed it one night because I remember it was before I published my book, and I had this book conference that I was going to, and I had all these notions of like, oh my gosh, I had better get my book proposal ready before I go to this particular conference, because if I don't, all these things aren't going to happen. I'm never going to be able to publish my book. I'm blah, 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 all these things. I'm going to miss all these opportunities that I'm going to have this weekend. So I stayed up all night finishing my book proposal, and you can probably guess how many times I needed my book proposal during that weekend. Zero times. And it never prevented my book from being published, nor did it make any difference or connect, I'm like getting my book, nor did it prevent me from making the great connections that I did that weekend. Okay, so that was the incidence for me where I learned, that voice for me, it's frantic. It has this like, you better, or else Amy, tone to it. It doesn't feel snarky like that. Like I just said, it's more like, oh my gosh, you better do this. Some of my students describe that theirs is worried or theirs is anxious. I've had another client tell me that hers was judgmental. It usually came on that flavor of like, well, what are people going to think? You better not do this because what are people going to think about you? So you can know that when you hear that gamut of information coming into you, this is absolutely not your intuition speaking to you, okay? Your intuition will not ever speak to you in that sort of grab you by your lapels way or push you in a certain direction, even when it's trying to prevent you from doing something that would, cause you trauma or drama, like I mentioned with the example, okay? Even with that, there was still never, with the example of the dating the person I shouldn't have, there was still never a, you better do this from my intuition, okay? So the way that you tell the difference is really by paying attention to how does it feel when you get the information, okay? What intuition does look like is it's calm, it's peaceful or it's emotionally neutral. It has this unquestionable feel to it. It doesn't mean that you won't have emotion afterward about the thing that either you need to do or what's going to happen. But when the information comes to you, the voice of your intuition is calm, it's neutral, okay? It's peaceful. So one of my best examples, or one of my favorite examples from one of my students was, she was describing it when she was in one of my classes, that she got this information that her father-in-law was about to die. Okay. And she described to our class that when she got the information, it was neutral. It was like a calm voice for her saying, he's about to pass. This is something you should know, probably didn't have all those words like I just said, but it was a calm and neutral knowing, even about something that obviously was going to cause her distress and emotional distress later. And that about something that would incite grief in her life, in her family's life. The knowing when it came did not have that grief in it. It did not have the any edge to it at all. It was simply a calm and really clear knowing. Okay. So if you're wondering, is this my intuition, or is this that other part of me that's frantically trying to come up with a solution? You can break it down by looking at, how is the information coming? Okay. There's a lot of different examples of that I could give, where or I guess what I want to be clear about is that the information that you get from your intuition, it may cause you to have experiences of fear or grief or sadness or all kinds of things afterward, especially if you're making a big leap of things. I still remember a time many years ago when I was teaching my Getting Answers process that somebody asked me to do this weekend workshop. I was obviously set to do it. I was really excited about it. The moment, like the day before, I was petrified. I was like, I just literally had that full body experience of like, oh my gosh. And luckily by that point, I already knew what the way that fear feels to me is, it feels like it's an alert system. It allows you to understand that you are about to do something new that you haven't done before. It's your human body's way of alerting you to the fact, stay awake, pay attention. This is new. This is going to be different. Okay. So luckily by the time I was even doing this, I already understood that about myself. So I wasn't like, cancel the workshop. I was just like, whoa, this is really big for me. Like, I'm about to do something really new and huge for me, a shifting thing for my being. So again, or I don't know, again, I'm just trying to make sure I'm making the point that I want to make. Your intuition, the point that I was really honing on is, you may experience an emotion afterward. You absolutely may. You may be like, oh my gosh, do I really need to do this? Is this right? You may have all that stuff, but you can start to differentiate and tell the difference because of the way that it comes initially. Okay. Calm, neutral, peaceful, or emotionless in tone. That's the way your intuition speaks to you, guiding you, nudging you. Even if it's something that's dangerous to you, it's going to say, it's not going to say, don't go down that alley. That is a terrible place to go. It's going to be like, I think this way is better. How about this way? Good idea. Okay. So, so I mentioned already that to me, fear really feels like this human alert system. And it's unavoidable for every human alive, just like all of the emotions are. And, but it doesn't have to stop you. Okay. And it's the very key way of being able to tell, is this my intuition speaking, or is this what my mind does? Its job is to tell me something different is going to happen. I need to stay awake. Okay. Okay. So two last thing. How are we doing for time, Liz? I actually didn't.
We're over.
What was that?
Over. We're a little bit over now.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I'm going to finish with this one thing of your intuition always guides you to the next step. Okay. It's pretty rare that it tells you the whole picture. So it's one of the things that holds people up, because you don't know, oh, why should I do this? Or, wow, this doesn't make sense for me right now. It seems like in my brain, this is different. So it's important to know about your intuition, that it's really pretty rare that it's going to give you the whole picture. It's going to tell you, oh, do this, investigate this, learn about this. Oh, maybe check out this, period. Go to this place. Once you do the thing, then you find out, oh, I needed to go there because I needed to meet this person, because she had a contact for me, because of this job, because of whatever the circumstances are for your life. But when your intuition is speaking to you, it's generally doesn't give you the whole picture. It gives you what to do next. And the way you find out why it's important is by doing that thing. So I think I can conclude there.
Action step.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, May, that was amazing. What a great explanation of intuition.
Thank you.
Yeah, and how we can use it and follow it and know the difference. I love the theories. Love that word. I think I'm going to start using that.
Totally.
And so true. Does anybody have any questions for Amy before we wrap up with her? You pretty much covered it all, Amy. That was amazing. Very thorough and awesome. I'm sure everybody really enjoyed it.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Let me check one more time. Nope. Awesome. Amy, thank you so much. Can you share with everybody how they can get a hold of you and any upcoming things you have?
Yeah, my website, I'm typing it in right now. It's my name, amycartier.com. You can also get there by spreadingblessings.com. I teach empaths how to manage themselves. I have a program that just started now, and the next one will be in March. I also have a bigger program called Own Your Intuition, another 7-month program where I teach you all the tricks that I use to keep my intuition sharp and detailed and helping me do what it needs to do. I do readings, 30, 45 minute, hour, minute readings. And I also teach Intuition University as a private program, a 6-month program. And that's for somebody who really wants in detailed understanding of how their particular intuition works and how to strengthen it for them. So that's more uber dialed to who that person is. So that's me in a nutshell.
Cool. And everybody, I've worked with Amy and she's amazing. So definitely work with her. And everybody who gets a reading from Amy is like, I don't know how she knew that. Not too long ago, I heard that was amazing. Wow. How did you know? It's awesome. Thank you, Amy, for joining me today. I really appreciate you
Having me. It's so fun.
Love you.
Love you too.
All right, guys. Next up is Eva Papp. So, oh, how'd that happen? Somebody jumped. And
there we go.
Awesome. Just a few clicks here and there along the way.
I know, right?
Welcome. So excited to have you, Eva. Thanks for joining us today. Looking forward to talk.
So first of all, it's really exciting to be with everybody here. And it's also so interesting because everyone's speaking and they're beginning to speak to parts of my talk. And I'm like, oh, I just dig this synchronicity. So I'm really excited to be embedded in the midst of, all these wonderful speakers, and also just to note that we've been listening for a really long time. So if anybody wants to get up for a minute and shake it out, it might be a good thing to do. And while you're doing that, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I work on the psychological spiritual continuum, and I've been a psychotherapist for 20 years. And my practice has really focused on integrative medicine, multicultural counseling, and I've always been a lifelong student of traditional wisdoms and traditional medicine, and have done research in Siberia and most recently the Amazon basin, and bring that work into what I do when I work with clients. But about 3 years ago, I closed my psychological practice to really focus on developing this curriculum, which is the curriculum for my school, which is called the School of De Nova. And whenever I tell anybody the School of De Nova, they're like, what's De Nova? And for me, it's something of a Rorschach. So really people see in it what they bring to it. But for me, it means, and this is really speaks to, what Jenny was talking about, and Elizabeth, this flash, it's really the God in one's brilliance. And the work of this school is teaching or sharing the way to women's personal power and giving the skills and the tools to really know how to step into one's power for the express purpose of living one's brilliance out into the world, with joy, with safety, with success and with impact. So that's what the school is about. And, well, I'm sure I'll have more opportunity to share at the end a little bit about that. But, you can find the school and my workshops and the offerings at my name, www.evapapp.com. You can find everything there. Okay, so now if everybody's been jumping around and shaking it out and getting ready for the next talk, I'm going to start. And just to know that I like to read my talks, because this allows me to not focus on what I'm going to say, but be more present with the experience here. So I will be looking aside a bit, but it's because I'm reading. All right, so now on to the talk, Kamala Harris versus the goddess. Now, I stuck a verses in there, Kamala Harris versus the goddess, knowing from the start it was going to create some tension. And in fact, this talk is very much about the verses. We hear verses and immediately we think competition, a winner, a loser, and what have you. And I set it up this way intentionally. I did it to recreate what we all do each and every day, which is that we set ourselves apart from our divinity. Now, I'm not saying this separation is something we do intentionally. In fact, I imagine if I asked most of us here what we all thought, the line I'd likely hear over and over is that we are all, in fact, expressions of the divine. And in fact, we've heard this, throughout our panel discussion today. But I found this to be a very and somewhat heady of a response. Like, what does that really mean to be an expression of the divine? And how exactly does this play out in real time and in real life? And, being a psychotherapist puts you in the middle of the real deal, where you get past what people say to what they do and how they live. And what I found is that, in fact, we often move through life as if we're shuttling between two planes, the human and the spiritual. And we live the spiritual one as if it's some kind of an ought. This is how we know we ought to be. This is how we ought to think and feel. And then we work really hard to get our human plane to align with the spiritual one. And this can create real tension for women, because getting and staying aligned with how we think we should be isn't always so easy, especially when we're always on the cusp of learning yet another thing about how we're supposed to be, right? Like that, it's always multiplying. Okay, now it's this, and now it's this. Referencing the spiritual plane in this way is a kind of setup for walking around always feeling there's more to do and be. And that's just kind of on the spiritual side of things. We can also jump over to the human plane, and we find it also contributes a part to exacerbating this tension we feel. Because just being human means we have to confront experiences of pain and injustice and oppression and all the expressions of evil and subsequent suffering that exist here on earth. And fully in this human experience of suffering, we're then asked to align all that darkness with the divine, see it as an expression of the divine. And for many women, this is not easy. And in truth, human experiences of suffering often work to deepen the chasm between the spiritual and the human. It's like asking the rape victim or the subject of genocide or hunger and disease to see these very human experiences as extensions and expressions of the spiritual. And again, not easy to do. Tension there. So despite what we might say, many of us sit in a reality that's split, where claiming our spirituality is very much about negotiating this ongoing tension that exists between our human and spiritual experience. And I think if we paused, even for a minute right now, it might be possible for us to feel the tension. And let's just take a minute and see if you can actually feel it. What does your body say about it? Because it's real. and something we all have to manage every day, even if it's hidden beneath layers of how things ought to be and far from the surface. Is anyone feeling that tension? That's rhetorical, for the moment anyway. Okay, so how is it that we're always in such struggle to realize the divine if we are in fact the divine itself? And the human experience, the muck and the murk of it, but an extension of the divine and its expression. What really happened to cause the separation, the splintering, the turning that renders our human experience so much less than divine, in our minds anyway? Is it really all about just suffering? Now, I'm going to say something that doesn't answer all the questions, obviously, but perhaps might add something to the conversation, which is that this versus, this tension, this separation is due in part to some really bad information we got. And I can't help to think to his earlier conversation about that moment of conception and then, being flooded in with all that information, right? This layering. Bad information we've been given about how the human experience works. And more importantly, our place in how it all works. And this bad information has seeded this versus. From our earliest days, we're taught there's a code we have to learn of how it all is. And given how it is, how we ought to be. And more than that, how we should want to be. How we should want to be. Take that in. Next page. And we're introduced to these oughts of who we are and how we are because of these external experiences and entities. From institutions, both religious and secular, and powerful others, and yes, that includes our parents, and that coding that we happened when we were conceived. We are born into oughts that existed long before we even got here, and that were formed with really no input from any of us. In a way, you could almost say we are born into a state of captivity. A captivity of the mind that finds its way into the body and the emotions, and then our lived experience. And these oughts, these shoulds that come from outside ourselves and have no relationship to who we are nonetheless over time internalized by us. As we develop to become the other against which our true selves must now compete to exist, let alone thrive. In other words, we take all that stuff, we internalize it, and now we become our own other. We become the verses that we're always fighting against, which so many already have spoken to so beautifully in their own way. So let's just take that piece in a minute, again, which has already been expressed in other panel participants. Calling this manufactured truth. This manufactured truth of how it is and who we are is, I would suggest, behind this tension, the verses we feel and under which we labor. This manufactured truth sets us against ourselves and also tells us we must strive to meet the external standard of a spiritual life, what we're told it should be and how it is, and shames and devalues us when we seemingly do not. This is the verses behind the questioning and diminishment of our very human rage and despair that would silence our suffering and righteous anger and our conviction to do and seek better. This is the verses that would alienate us from ourselves, that asks us to turn from our own experience to privilege the experience of a manufactured ought of who we are told we should be. The verses that would disappear us and usurp and commandeer our vitality. So then the question becomes, How do we turn away from this internalized other, this invasive set of rules that would separate us from our divinity and attempt to make our humanness the other? Well, the answer is kind of simple, and it's right here in front of each one of us. And it's just to refuse the separation. It's coming, the page is coming. To own our whole self and our whole experience as divine is to do just that. It's to lay claim to all of it, to all of who we are as divine. To erase the schism is simply to start with the premise that who we are, all of who we are, is divine, right here, right now, and like they say in the hymn, just as I am. Owning one's divinity in this way will result in a whole host of things, but centrally, it gives you license to tune into who you are. And yes, that means really paying attention to who you are. It also gives urgency to the very human level skills of respecting and taking seriously what you hear about yourself when you tune in, making boundaries consistent with what you hear, taking actions in accordance with what you hear, gathering support so you can persist in validating what you hear, and taking the steps needed to actualize what you hear, which of course means knowing how to act with personal power and authority. Accepting the inherent divinity of your life turns the tables on how things are currently done. Instead of studying institutions and traditions to understand who you are, you have license to study yourself to know who you are. Seems kind of logical, right? You have license to understand above all your joy and your brilliance, your needs and your wants, and only then and only after how institutions and traditions can best be leveraged to serve who you would become. I freaking love that line. I'm going to say it again. You have license to understand above all your joy and your brilliance, your needs and your wants, and only then and only after how institutions and traditions can best be leveraged to serve who you would become. Now that's turning the tables. Owning your inherent and complete divinity means your pleasure matters and your commitments matter too. It means you get to be the focus and locus of your life. It means you count. Who you are counts. And your native brilliance, whatever it is, the brilliance with which you were born is no accident, but a part of the life-giving whole. You, in fact, are Kamala, and you are the goddess. And the true verses is without, not within. So breathe. Take that in. Thank you. So that is the talk. And I really hope that people have questions because it was dense and it was compact and we have time now.
That was
And if not, I can riff, but.
amazing and dense and compact. So I have one. So until we start getting some questions, come on guys, shoot us some questions. How we should be versus how we should want to be. Break that down a little bit. And
well, I think I put them together.
There.
What's that?
Metamorphosis of going from one way of being to another way of being.
Well, I think those two go together. With who we should be and who we should want to be is really the status that we exist in, that we are told what our reality is and told what our reality should be. And against that, what I'm suggesting is a fundamental turning to the self and locating oneself at the core so that so there's a practice, there's an understanding, there's a way. And of course, these are the things that I teach in my school about locating oneself centrally and then learning how to listen and learning to understand the data that you get back when you listen and then doing the work. It's already been suggested in the group of then parsing and understanding what comes from stuff that's been layered on and what is really authentic to who you are. And as you begin to parse that, you start to hear your own voice and your own truth. And my contention is that one's brilliance is authentically aligned with one's divinity. And so as you begin to be able to hear your authentic voice, you automatically start to become more aligned with your divinity. And then taking actions from that place is then what it means to live an empowered life.
Mhm. So what are some steps that we can take to refuse the separation, start paying attention to self, tuning into self, and really redirect ourselves to that place where we're owning our own divinity and stepping into our authenticity and really learning or living from where we are as an individual instead of everything, that's working in our subconscious.
Right. And I believe you and I actually walked this terrain before when we had an interview. So I'm happy to revisit again. But I do think, and as other people have mentioned already, it starts with recognizing that we have been fed and have integrated messages that do not serve the expression of our own divinity, that serve potentially others' agendas. And this is over time, aeons. This is not just here in the moment and the presiding powers of the moment. This is historical.
Mhm.
So there's a recognition first that that's the state that we're in. But, and this is a really important point, to be able to differentiate what's mine and what's not mine, one has to first establish a relationship with the self, where one hones that ability to perceive what is authentic to oneself. And there's work there. One of the things I write in my website is why a school of De Nova? And it's like, because, and especially as women, we have not been taught that we even have the right or expectation to live in personal power and personal authority, let alone being given the tools to live in such a way, right? So we need to be taught again these things that have been lost, right? Why there's a school. But when things have been lost, you have to focus to relearn. And that's a whole pathway. This is not just, oh, now I do this and now I'm an authentic person. And in fact, we're all authentic people, but we can act consistently with our authenticity. In fact, one of the things I say all the time is that, you'll see people say, be authentic, live your authentic life, but no one says how. How do you do that, right? And those steps are what's missing and what's so critical. So I would say the first step is to recognize this terrible state that we're in. It's like an alienated state. I talk about it as a captive state. I believe that is so. To recognize it and then start listening. And I always love to start with listening to your pleasure, because to me, that is the easiest, funnest, right, way to begin to hear yourself. What makes me happy in this moment? What gives me pleasure? Why? And the why will tell you things about yourself. As you explore them, you're like, oh, I'm getting pleasure because this feels good to me. So this is a reflection of something about me. But wow, it's reflecting something I've been taught about how I should be. And I'm actually living out and finding pleasure by expressing someone else's idea of who I should be. And is this really authentic to myself? And as you begin to play with this, the margins become clearer. And somebody else used that expression. I thought it was lovely. And you begin to realize over time and with application of a listening in a certain way, and then doing that, ancillary work of teasing it out, you begin to see the contours of who you are. Now, again, becoming more authentic is a lifelong practice, not only because it's deep and subtle, but because we change, right? So we're constantly in dialogue with who we are authentically, and sort of have a practice to do that is ongoing, right? And again, as I always used to say with my clients, you move the bar. So things that used to be so difficult, you do with ease, but there's another edge, because if you're in a growing pattern, there's always a growing edge, but now your capacity has changed. So people will live with more and more authenticity, but the nuance of it will continue to be there for refinement purposes and to get higher. Hope that answers something. I talked a long time.
Amazing. And it is, an avenue to the self. And, so often as women, we're other focused. And we come to a point in our life where we realize, oh, I kind of lost myself, or I've got, I don't know who I am anymore. Who am I? Or who am I when I'm not a mother anymore, when our kids leave the nest? Or who am I when I'm not a wife anymore, if we go through divorce? Or who am I if I don't have a job, if we lose our job? Or, those sorts of things. And kind of rediscovering, I did that. That was part of my process when I was like, oh, I totally set myself aside and who didn't even know who I was anymore. And that was one of the practices that I used, was what makes me happy and what doesn't make me happy, putting it on the list, and okay.
Yes, that's an absolutely fabulous place to start. And I just wanted to go back and respond to something that you said, that, we as women, and it's true, we as women have not been taught to privilege ourselves and to think of the other, but men have too. And when you really talk about authenticity, like almost no one really has been given permission to pursue their own authenticity, because it's threatening to the powers that be. It doesn't matter if men or women do it, whatever.
Yeah.
So this quest to come back home, to understand who we are, and to act from who we are in such a way that we continuously empower ourselves. We expand our ease, we expand our pleasure, we expand our vitality, our confidence, our purpose, our impact. Nobody's talking about that, right? Because it doesn't serve anybody. It only serves us. And who cares about each one of us as individuals? But like Aimee, who just spoke, said, this time requires that each one of us stand as a power nodule. It's no good, this hero thing. We all are heroes, and we all have to own our hero to actually create the transformation that's needed, because it's going to be multifaceted. It's not one person leading the way, been done, that phase is over. And this empowerment, no matter who you are, to step into who you are with joy and purpose is what's required. So yeah, I don't think it's just a prescription for women, although, women certainly and have had their share of this oppression.
Yes, there is oppression on the other side of the fence as well, for sure. I want to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And that what you described is really the essence of the spiritual path, the journey back to self, and then, how do you be a self with others?
Well, let me just say something, because this is actually the heart of what I was talking about, and which was reflected in other people's communication today, that this is new. The spiritual journey is a path back to the self. It's always been, the spiritual journey is a path toward that thing out there, which is what my whole talk has been about. You try to be more Christ-like, or you follow the path of the Buddha, or you whatever. This is new consciousness. Like, oh, you mean I come back home? That my pleasure matters? This is like freaking revolutionary. This is like blowing it all up, right? Mm-hmm. So, and yes, this is the language of now, but this is new. This is new.
Yeah, I love this new frontier.
Yeah, it's empowering to women.
I'm glad you're all here to share it with me. Awesome. How can people, we've got your email there. What do you have coming up? You have your school starting up in January.
Yeah.
What's going
on? Well, I have some workshops now, very little webinars. I have one on supreme power, and then it's talking about Amy Coney Barrett and using her as a model to talk about personal power. I have one on, it's a workshop on starting on this path of exploring your pleasure to find your authenticity. But my real flagship course, which is a 3-month online program, and it really is going from A to Z. It's like, how do we discover who we are? How do we get those tools working well? And then how do we use that to build what I call right action? This is the first 6 weeks of the course. And right action being action that's consistent with our authenticity, that has a follow-on effect of building more confidence and ease and pleasure and purpose and impact, blah, blah, blah. 6 weeks. And again, we start from the very beginning. This is very psychologically embedded stuff. And then we move from that. Well, now that we, know who we are and what we want to be doing, how do we move that out into the world safely and successfully? And that is a huge piece on boundaries in a much more complex way. And we go into deep on internal boundaries and all the rest of it. And then the last couple of weeks, we focus on fluid dreaming, which is now how do we take our vision out into the world and express the highest version of it? And so then we look at that. So we go from all the way to the beginning to all the way to the end. So it's a pretty intensive program. And again, it starts in January, and I'm pretty excited about it. So anybody who's interested, please come over to the website and check it out, and email me if you have questions.
EvaPapp.com, everybody. Go over there and check out everything that she has to offer. I'm looking forward to your course in January. I know it's going to be amazing and help many. Thank you.
Cool.
And
Thank you, Liz. Yeah.
Great. All right. And next up, we have Katie Kozlowski. Hi, Katie. How's it going?
Wait.
Here.
Okay. Got me?
Yes.
Okay. I had a bit of a costume change.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, this is what I actually looked like all along. Cool. So I am here to wrap up today.
Yes.
So exciting to be listening to conversations around the feminine, the goddesses, everything that I'm passionate about. Obviously, this is something that I'm super stoked about. And I've been listening and I've been listening and I've been listening, and I'm like, oh, this is like all the stuff I talk about all day long. And, I'm watching the time go by, and I'm like, okay, we want to finish on time, right? We want to finish at 5 o'clock. Well, for me, it's 5 o'clock. Interestingly, we started at 2 o'clock. It was daylight here. Now it's dark. And the biggest thing that I want to share with you that is something that is near and dear to my heart when it comes to talking about the feminine, in particular, women empowerment, moving through trauma, right? Moving through your own struggle and your own journey, is that if you find yourself looking for the goddess, right? Looking for empowerment, looking for freedom, looking for whatever it is you're looking for, it really is this simple. You're not going to find it anywhere except in your own backyard, right? It is the Wizard of Oz. Meaning you're not going to find the answers you're looking for, the liberation, the freedom, the transformation, the love, anywhere except inside of you. It really is a matter of going within, going deeper into the psyche, and having the courage and the devotion to love yourself enough to do this work. There's been so much said today about the journey and the power of the feminine and love and acceptance and compassion and all of that. And I've been doing this for quite some time. And the biggest thing that I came to realize is that I was struggling very much as a young woman. I absolutely thought there was something wrong with me. I'm highly emotional, I'm highly intuitive, and I've been through a lot of trauma. I've been hit by a taxi. I've been sexually assaulted more than once. I had 3 suicides in my family. Just so many things have happened to me over the years. And the point I want to make to you is this: the goddess, the feminine, is built for transformation. And if you've ever suffered pain in your life, if you've suffered trauma, if you feel things deeply, passionately, right? That is your gift. And the whole debate of like, you know, who are we fighting and sort of who's the victim here and who's the heroine and all of that, it really is like, you're not going to find it anywhere outside of yourself. It really is you versus you, right? It is you versus you versus you versus you versus you. You will never find the solution by blaming someone else, right? Or going into victimhood, or feeling badly about yourself for the rest of your life, right? It's one of those things where I know, because this is what I do every single day with women. And the thing that I notice over and over again is that we don't feel like we have a choice, right? That's the sovereignty. It's your right to choose what happens next, right? It is your right to choose in this moment whether you continue to suffer and struggle and beat yourself up and go through the battle, or to set yourself free. It is up to you to make the choice, just like it was up to me to make the choice. And the thing that changed my life, I did 10 years of spiritual study. I've done multitudes of studying. I've done trainings with master energy coaches. I've done all of this stuff. And I found that at the end of the day, the thing that really liberated me wasn't anything my teacher did, wasn't anything that miraculously, the clouds didn't part and open one day and I was like, hallelujah, I am free. It was a systematic daily practice of self-love, self-acceptance, introspection, learning to love and accept yourself for who you are, where you are, as you are, right? And that means that when you go through darkness, you are okay, right? When you find yourself going down, when I was hearing the story about going down the stairs and how mucky and ucky they were, I thought, okay, I know this part of the story really well because I know Persephone, I know Inanna, I know the descent into the underworld. We all have that. We all have that. And the thing that I realized is that, you know, you can either sit there and you can avoid that, right? You cannot walk down the stairs. You can say, I don't see that part of myself. I don't want to accept that part of myself, right? If I just avoid that patch of my life, I'll be fine. But the thing that changed my life was when I allowed myself to walk down those stairs and to face the darkness, right? That's why I said it's funny, I'm in the dark here. When I found myself sitting in the darkness alone and I felt alone and I felt despair, that was when I realized that I was the one responsible for the rest of my life, right? It wasn't my teacher. It wasn't some miraculous experience that was going to save me. It was me having the faith and the courage to trust myself and say, you know what? I am going to figure this out. I am going to learn how to stand up for myself. I am going to learn my lessons. I am going to love myself no matter what. I am going to walk through the dark knowing that I'm okay, and I'm not going to resist all this stuff. And I'm also going to stop letting people tell me who I am. I'm not going to let people tell me that because I was, you know, because I look the way I look, therefore I lived a life of objectification, right? Or because something happened to me in my past, I'll never be free from it. I can't change, you know, I can't change who I am. The truth is we have tools, right? Neuroplasticity changes the way you think. Your brain is plastic. You have the capacity to change your cellular memories, activate your DNA, change your processing, rewrite the story. The thing I love the most about the work that I've been doing and the way that I teach is I love the heroine's journey. I love the heroine's journey because the heroine is the one who says, you know what? I'm not going to let myself get stuck in a place where I don't want to be, right? The heroine always makes it home. It's everything we've been talking about. And so you have the choice to figure out what that is for you, how you do that, what that looks like, what that means. And then you walk through the dark, right? You face your fears. You deal with your traumas. You feel your fears. You feel your shame. You feel your pain, right? You acknowledge it, you own it. And the brilliant thing that happens is when you take ownership for who you are, that's the liberation, that's the freedom. That's where you get to walk down the street and say, you know what, I am who I am, and nobody is going to change me, and nobody is going to put me in a box again. Nobody's going to label me. Nobody's going to hurt me. The thing that I see with women that go through my program, that's the most exciting thing, is that they realize for the first time in their lives, wait a minute, I had a choice. I had a choice. When I experienced my traumas, so many of them, especially the sexual assaults, it's like, do you know that I didn't know I had a choice? I didn't think that I could pick up the phone and call the police. That's how little I loved myself. I didn't know that $20 to pay for a taxi would get me out of there. Do you know what I mean? That's how little I believed in my power to change my circumstances. That's all I could see. So the one thing I want you to take away from everything you've heard today, and what it is that I'm offering you, is this understanding that if you gain nothing from listening to all of these beautiful women sharing their truth and these stories and looking at this for yourself, it's like, listen, you have a choice, and you can end up in the box, in a prison, in a painful situation, being hurt over and over again, suffering, feeling, wanting to lose the weight, wanting to get the job, whatever it is that you want, and ending up stuck over and over again. Or you can choose something different, right? The way you do that is through everything everyone has said today. And I have some really great tools for you as well. I'm going to pop in the chat box here a couple of my treats that I have for you. I have a mini crash course on healing your wounded feminine. It's a 20-minute audio, super simple. You can listen to that. I have a workshop on shedding shame that I taught. You are welcome to listen to that, where I teach you how to get shame out of the foundation of your being. And then the other thing I want to offer everyone, because I do want us to finish on time and I want to take some questions. And so I'm not going as in depth into my work and my story as some of the other women have done, and that's totally cool. But I'm offering you a chance to book a call with me. If you book a call with me, what happens is it's you and me, nobody else. And it's a chance for me to help you pick apart everything that you've been struggling with. Chances are, if you knew what to do to change your life, you would do it, right? It's in your subconscious, it's in your cells, it's in your DNA, it's stuff, it's hard stuff. So the beauty of getting on the phone with me is that I can help you understand where it's coming from, why you have it, and also give you some really practical tools to start to change your life, right? I'm all about creating change as quickly as possible, and really empowering you to know that you have a choice. You don't have to fight yourself anymore. The battle can end, the struggle can end, right? Like all of that. I hated myself for years. Like, do I look like someone who hates themselves? No, I don't now, but I did. And the more you get to know me, the more you'll know that I was suicidal. I was hit by a taxi. I mean, I had all this bad stuff happen to me. And if I can change my life and change my circumstances and go from this wounded feminine that's like, suffering and powerless to an empowered woman, you can do it too. And so that's what I wanted to share with you today. I told Liz I could do it in like 15 minutes and I am complete. So if there are questions, please feel free to ask me. Liz, if you want to ask me any questions about anything, you know that I love answering questions. Oh, wait, you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry. I'm going to have you go in and put in all of your links again because you put them to me
Oh, I sent it to you privately.
right now.
Whoops. Sorry, everyone.
Put them to, there we go.
There you go.
All of them. Awesome. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. And do you guys have any questions for Katie? Pop them in the chat or the Q&A. So while I'm waiting maybe for some of these questions to come in, how do we go from being the woman who doesn't feel like she has a choice to the woman who does feel like she has a choice? That can make that choice for herself, that empowered self that can.
Right.
So
yeah.
Okay.
That's a great question. When I have this program, Fiercely Feminine, and I was actually teaching it last night. And module 4 is victimhood to the heroine, right? And the thing that's one of the most important things is for you to actually take responsibility for your life, no matter like where you're at. So like an example is I was $85,000 in debt, right? Now I was $85,000 in debt because I had spent $20,000 on a coach who was supposed to, teach me how to change my life and all this stuff. And they didn't do it. And then the rest of it was with this spiritual teacher who was also supposed to, help me. Now, they both did help me, but I was $85,000 in debt and I needed to change that circumstance quickly, right? So I could have been in a space of feeling powerless, right? Like, oh, these people did these bad things to me and, they tricked me and conned me and woohoo, I'm in debt and I can't get out of it. I could have treated myself that way. I could have also beat myself up and said I'm such an idiot and I'm so stupid and I'm ashamed and I don't want anybody to know. Or I can take responsibility for this and say, you know what, yeah, I did this. I created $85,000 in debt. I did it because I wanted to help myself. I did it because I was in a lot of trouble and I needed the help, right? And I did it because I love myself. So that's just one example of how I was able to shift it. And what happened was, as soon as I shifted the negative stigma of the feeling like a victim because I was in debt, I made $120,000 instantly. And by instantly, I mean like within 6 months.
Mhm.
I just managed to manifest enough money to bring in the funds to release that debt. So that's the power of this. And that's what it looks like for you, is instead of feeling like, you're responsible for this thing, or you're not responsible for it. If you take responsibility for your life, then you're free to make a new choice. You're not going to make a new choice if you're sitting there feeling bad or ashamed, afraid to talk about it. You're not going to be able to dissolve it. Do you know what I mean?
Great. Okay, so I'm not seeing any questions. Let me check the Q&A one more time. Is there anything you would like to leave our listeners with today?
I mean, the point of all of this, and I came out with guns a-blazing, right? Because here's the thing.
Thank you.
The thing about the goddess, right? The feminine, everybody talks about it, right? You've got to have the courage to talk your talk and walk your walk. If you sit and you just think about it and you don't embody it and you don't live it every single day, it won't come true. It won't come true because you need it in your energy field, right? You need to feel it. You need to taste it. You need to see it. You need to live it. It's about embodiment. That's the goddess. That's what it is. So if you're not giving yourself the joy of actually living and breathing every single day who you are, you do remain stagnant, and then you don't get what you want. And then you wonder why. And it's like, well, but are you actually living it? Or are you still stuck in that box? Are you still stuck in that cage? Are you still just sort of sitting on the sidelines? So, it's just a call to action. It's get in the game. It's get the help, invest in any of these brilliant programs. It's like when you hear something that piques your interest, don't say, oh, gee, that sounds like it would be a great program, but I don't have the money, or like, oh, I'm scared. Get in the game. Like, get some skin in the game. Be brave enough to invest. Get in touch with anyone you heard today that speaks to you and say, hey, I'd like to have a conversation with you. Listen to the audios. Do you know what I mean? Digest the information, because that's the first step in activating the changes that you want. You got to live it. So that would be my last,
Yes. Amen. Go, Katie. I love your energy. You really brought it today. Awesome.
Well, I mean, I'm like, all right, I only have 15 minutes. I feel like I'm not always like this, but I mean, you know what? Let's be honest. I'm always like this. It's like the coach, there's that side of the feminine that's really passionate. My healing modality is called Shakti Bomb. I am a living, breathing embodiment of Shakti. So if I don't bring it, then I'm not being my authentic self. So, just love yourself, be yourself, rock yourself, whatever that is for you. And you will, you'll be very pleased with what comes out of it.
Yes, ladies, do it. Go on Katie's website, check her out, and please click on all of these offers that she put over here in the chat, and click on everyone else's links that they put in the chat too, and really check them out and see if you resonate with any of these and see how they can help you. Katie, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I'm going to pin everybody up front here. They're here. They can say goodbye. They've stepped away. There we go. Hi, everyone. I'm going to unmute everyone. Everyone, thank you so much. I really appreciate you, your presence, everything you guys had to offer today. It really was truly a blessing and an honor to hold this space with all of you. And I really appreciate you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Liz.
so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. And please go check out these beautiful women, check out their work, go to their links, do their classes, do their workshops. And you can also listen to their interviews on Raise the Vibe with Liz podcast on iTunes and other platforms, and also Raise the Vibe with Liz YouTube channel. So please listen to their talks. And they also have talks that you can listen to on other platforms and their platforms as well. So check those out, guys. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
And thank you, everyone, for joining me. This has been a pleasure to host this for you, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. Many blessings to everybody. Much gratitude for you guys who hung out to the end. Thank you so much. Love to you all. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.